Let's see. Let's see. Okay, cool. I think we're ready. And I'm sorry, YouTube, we got you leaning. I don't know if we're going to be able to stop the lean or not. It's about as close as it looks like we're going to get. Prayerfully, you guys will be able to hear us and see us fine. Let's go ahead and get started. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste, wasaya, anakitawaya, Ohio. I see you. Manut, wagwan, kamsa, kamsamida, aloha, habarigani, akuaba, madease, etesen. Jambu, Bimini Kofi, Nina Franco, Katana Wewe, Chow, Boker Tov, Boker Tav, Boker Tab, Bakwer Tav, Barakalat Sham Yahaba, Anai Kofi, headed at Servants of Christ, Mashalam He. Hello, everybody. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servants of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. We're appreciative and grateful and thankful to have you guys join us one more again. We're excited about what Yahweh has for us today. We give all praise and honor to the only wise Elohim, Yahweh. We give all honor and praise to Him for my wife, the Honorable Amma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. As always, you can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N. Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree, for those that need a little extra oomph on there. And thank you guys once again for joining us. We appreciate you. And hopefully your day is starting off well. We are going to go to a few different scriptures to read. So if you want to go to Matthew chapter 5 and put like a little pin or tassel there, we will head over there in a second. But first and foremost, we're actually going to go somewhere else. And forgive me, I'm having a little issue. I know it's John. I feel like it's John 14 or 15, but give me a second. Hold on. I think it's John 14, 15. If you want to look in there real quick, John chapter 14 and verse 15. So if you want to once again just put a little pin over in Matthew chapter 5, we'll go over there, but we'll go to John 14 first. And I believe it's going to be John 14, 15. Let me double check. I think it is. Amen. All right. John 14, 15. Then we're going to go, for those who want to take notes, we're going to go from John 14 and 15 to Matthew chapter 5, verses 10 through 12. Then we're going to go to Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 through 20. And then we're going to go to Matthew chapter 7, verse 12. But if you want to make it easier on yourself, just put a little tassel or pin or put your thumb or something like that in Matthew chapter 5, and then go ahead and turn over to John chapter 14 and verse 15. Once you have it, say amen, say amen, say I got it, say I'm with you. Let us know that you're there. If you need us to wait, just let us know. All right. And for those of you who are still new to the Bible, if you open up to Matthew, or if you're able to use your, it's your friend, your table of contents, feel free to use that. Go to Matthew, and then 3 books over is John, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Turn over there, and we'll go ahead and get into this. Matatayach and Yahachanan. Aman. Alrighty, let's say hello to everybody while you're turning. Hopefully you guys are having a great day as always. How you doing, Sister Renee? Aaron also too. I see that you made a reference, and I'm sorry again, but I did send a video. Actually, I sent a couple videos. I'm gonna try and send a little playlist to you as well. That should be able to help, and then at least you got the information. And the first video that I sent, it's me speaking directly to you about the questions that you had. So at least we should be able to get started in that regard. And thank you for your patience with me. How you doing, Sister Mavis? How you doing, Sister Judith? How you doing, Tamaya? How you doing, Pearl? Hood Classic, Big Brother Thomas. If I miss your name on any of the platforms, by the way, charge it to my head, not to my heart. We appreciate you. Thanks for everybody who's coming on over from, or who's on the podcast, who's on YouTube, who's on TikTok, and coming over from Facebook. We appreciate you. How you doing, Starseed? Let's see. Create with Key, if I said that correctly. Tristan DeWill, You already fail. Well, that's okay. You fast as long as you can, especially if this is your first time really doing something like that with us or whatever. And we're continuing to look that we grow as a family. This is a family fast, so we're doing our intermittent fasting. We still have today, and then we have tomorrow, and then tomorrow in the evening we'll do our prayer and fasting. So tomorrow at 8 we'll be on, and we'll just let the music play. I just realized I will be on the road, so I will not be playing unless we just don't go to our kung fu class tomorrow. Since we'll be on the road, we will be we'll let the music play. So as you come in, music will be playing and everything like that. Matter of fact, we should have a nice little setup to where you should be able to hear everything coming through. Actually pretty nicely, because it'll be inside the vehicle. So we'll try to turn up the volume and stuff so you won't hear too much outside noise on Friday. But prayerfully you can join us for that. Thank you for the love. How you doing, Ever and Black Steel? If I miss you, Sister Sheila, everybody, thank you guys coming over from Thursday Rising Prayer. I was not able to make it, but I did reach out to let leadership know, and some of you, to let you know how proud I am of certain things that the Most High is doing in your life. How you doing, Beck MG? Everybody, Sharonda, appreciate you. Okay, once again, we're going to John 14:15, and then from there we're going to go to Matthew chapter 5. Once you have it, say amen. Say I got it. Say I'm with you. Hallelujah. We're going to go ahead and send a little reminder over to those who are on Facebook, so that they can come over here before we start the Facebook live going. So at least they can get a word if they'd like to. Give me a second for that. Let me make sure that they can come on in here. We're continuing this series called Reverse Mythology. And we're going to talk about a really big myth today. So we've kind of outlined a few of these myths already. And I'm excited about today's message, because it's really going to take us to a place where we're going to have to really think some things through, and how we've been affected by these myths, and how we can start to reverse these things once we know what they are. Come on. Alrighty. So once again, with John 14:15, that's where we're going to start. How you doing, Minister Samaya LeRae? I'm on. Awesome. I see some got it, some amens with yous. How you doing? Hola, mi hermana. ¿Cómo está? Mi hermana Sherry. Right. Let's see. Alrighty. So here we go. And we're going to say our Bible pledge first. So if you're able to put your Bible or your device in your right hand, or just put your right hand up in the air. And if you're able to reverence the word of Yahweh in some kind of way, including if you're able to stand, we invite you to do so. But the Bible pledge goes like this. This is my Bible. This is my sword. And this will I trust. For Yahweh is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible. And this is Yah's word. Atshem Yahweh. Aman. Or in Yahweh's name. Amen. How you doing, Money Green? All right, let's go ahead and start. This is John chapter 14, verse 15. It reads as follows. It says, if, big if right here, if what? If ye love me. So if you really love me like you say you do, this is the Messiah talking. This is your Christ talking, right? That's right. Read your Bible to bless you. If ye love me, keep my commandments. That's John 14:15. Now let's go over to Matthew chapter 5. And we're going to start at verse 10. All right. So John 14:15. If ye love me, keep my commandments. Let's go over to Matthew chapter 5. Now I'm having issues with my stuff. Matthew chapter 5 and verse 10. Okay, come on. There we go. Matthew chapter 5, verse 10. This is verses 10 through 12. It says, blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake. Not just because they're right, but because they're righteous. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is Radach Shamayam, or the kingdom of heaven. Barak, blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely. They're lying about you. There's a point. Not because they tell the truth about you, but because they're lying on you for my sake, for Yehoshaphat's sake. Not for ours, but we're saying what he says. They're mad at us because we're keeping up his reputation. Verse 12, rejoice. Jump up, leap up again and again. Rejoice and be exceeding glad. Don't just be glad, but be overjoyed, over glad. Right? For great is your reward at Shamayam. Great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. Right now, let's go down to Matthew chapter 5, and we'll start at verse 17. We'll read verses 17 through 20. Verse 17 says, think not that I am come. Who is I? Yahashua. He says, think not, so don't think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law. That's the most minuscule of measurements, nor even the way it's written, shall in no wise, in no way pass from the law. In other words, it is not wise to go ahead and change the law or say that the law is insignificant, right? Till all be fulfilled, till all come into effect, till all is put into effect. That's what this word is. Till you live inside of it. That's what this word fulfill means, okay? Verse 19, whosoever therefore shall break one. How many of these? Whosoever shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach, the same shall be called great, or in the kingdom of heaven. For I say unto you that except your righteousness, your right lawful standing, shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, ye shall in no cases this exists. If you don't know the law greater than the scribes and Pharisees, you shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. And let's read Matthew chapter 7 and verse 12. Amen. This is the golden rule in its entirety. You usually only read the first half of the golden rule. Let's go through the whole golden rule. What does the entire golden rule say? That Matthew chapter 7 verse 12, the entire golden rule says, therefore. Therefore means what? Therefore, where did this come from? Because of what? Because of, hey, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and all its righteousness and all these things shall be added unto you. Because we should make sure that we pray and that we give alms the way that the Most High wants and not for men to want us to do so. Because we shall make sure that we pray correctly and that we forgive others. Because we are not worried about the chaff in someone's eye and we got a 2x4 hanging out of our eye, right? Because of all these things, because we do not cast pearl before swine. Because we give, knowing it shall be given unto us. This is all Matthew chapters 5, 6, 7, stuff right there. So Matthew chapter 7, verse 12 says, therefore, because of all those things, whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, do ye even so to them. For this is the law and the prophets. In other words, the golden rule in its entirety sounds like this. Do unto others as you would have done unto you, right? For this is the law. If you don't follow the law, whatever you're doing to others is not righteousness. If you don't do what the prophets did to others, then that's not do unto others as you want done unto you, according to the law. We've just read John chapter 14, verse 15. We've just read Matthew chapter 5, verses 10 through 12. We just read Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 through 20. We've just read Matthew chapter 17. Matthew chapter 7 and verse Matthew chapter 7 and verse 12. May Yahweh have a blessing to the readers, hearers, and especially those who are doers of his most holy word. You may be seated if you are standing, or if you're reverencing, go back to what you're doing. Thank you for joining us in solidarity with that. Today, how you doing, Aaron? I said hello earlier, excuse me. Thank you for that. Thank you for putting that in the chat. How you doing, Tianya? Aman. Today, we're going to talk about, in this series, reverse mythology. Today, we're going to talk about this myth, particularly. Our theme for today is pseudo Christianity. Pseudo Christianity. Pseudo, P-S-E-U-D-O, Christianity. Pseudo Christianity. All right. Now, we must start here, right, by explaining the word pseudo, because you'll hear a lot of stuff pseudo theoretical or pseudo theories, right? Somebody will say it's pseudoscience. Somebody will say it's pseudo this, pseudo that. Pseudo is a word of even pseudo synonyms, right? But a word pseudo basically just means it's fake, or it's a mock version. It's a modified version. It's modified. It's not righteous. It's not lawful. It's not natural. It's not the way you should look at it. It's pseudo. It is false. So when we say pseudo Christianity, we mean mock or a fake version of something. But not only just pseudo Christianity, because many Christians don't even live up to their Christian ways. Also, if we put a little extra on that, we are not Christian. who are true followers of the way, because the Bible was written before Christianity and before it was changed. But what we're talking about today, pseudo Christianity, in this myth, in this reverse mythology series. And by the way, we are still going to do a watch party. Start our watch party. We're going to be doing quite a few Saturdays in a row for a while, but our watch party Saturday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, New York time. It'll be on Clapper. We're going to try to use the Clapper app. So if you don't have the Clapper app, please, man, please, sir, let us know. I will try to make sure when we send the Google Calendar invite that we put a little link in there for you to be able to find us on there, and we'll be live there to watch it. So we're going to try it because TikTok's been giving us a lot of issues on this stuff. So we just to make sure we don't have to stop. We have TikTok as a backup if we need to, and we can go to Kofi_40, the original page, if we need to. But we're going to try to use the Clapper app. So I apologize. I know I keep saying get this one, but sometimes you just got to do what you got to do, especially if it's virtual, right? But if you don't have the Clapper app, literally like the clap on, clap off, right? Like that, they're spelled the same way, CLAPPER. Clapper. So if you have that app, or if you don't have it, you still got time. We've been trying to say it, I think, since Sunday or Monday. Try and get that app so we can watch it together, and then we'll do a little brief discussion right after it. Okay? Alrighty. Amen. And we'll see you guys later this evening. Also, too, don't forget tomorrow is Community Day, where we go out and we ask people to do something for someone in your community. You don't have to tell us what it is, because that's not what it's about. We just want that to be in your mind. We do that every first Friday. So today being the 29th of February. By the way, last day of Black History Month. Happy Black History Month to those. I apologize. I don't really focus on it, so I probably haven't said that once. But today's the last day of February. If you're following the Gregorian calendar, and then from there we'll bounce over to March. And so every first Friday, it'll be March 1st tomorrow. So please, man, please, sir, if you can bless somebody in your community, we're thankful and grateful for you doing so in advance. And also don't forget, tomorrow we'll be finishing up with our last day of our intermittent fasting. And tomorrow evening we'll do our prayer and fasting on Kofi_42 on TikTok. And then on Saturday, brothers, don't forget we have our men's meeting at 7:00 p.m. Eastern New York time on Zoom, where, brothers, if you do have ideas for how we can meet up, where we can meet up, what we can do physically, and if not, I'll have some stuff for you. And also we're going to do some Q&A just for the brothers. All right. So brothers, don't forget, just for you guys, right? Have your questions ready, things like that. We also often talk about, we don't have a safe space, this and that, or whatever. Tomorrow, whatever questions is meant, however hard hitting it is, no sister's going to be on. It's just going to be us brothers. Feel free to go at it. If you're doing something or dealing with something and you've been afraid to admit you're doing whatever, or how can you be better as a father, husband, brother? What does the scripture mean as far as that? And even if it's not particularly towards men, tomorrow will be your time on Zoom just for you. Okay. How you doing, Sister Bread? So today, once again, we're dealing with the series called Reverse Mythology. And today we're focused on pseudo Christianity. When we say pseudo Christianity, what we mean is many people believe that you are doing things based off of Christianity. Now, remember, Christianity in and of itself is a myth, because Christianity is the mixing of iron and clay. But you believe, for example, like that England is a Christian nation. But England's story doesn't start off in Christianity, right? Where you might believe that the United States of America is a Christian nation. First of all, the United States of America is not a country, it's a corporation. But secondly, right, and more in line with today, the United States of America is not a Christian nation. How you doing, Minister Tamara? So we're dealing with a lot of pseudo Christianity, a mock version or a false thing that's been presented to you called Christianity. And many people don't want to admit that it's not. And we believe that we should keep the commandments, and that we should keep things up for the namesake of Yahshua, and that we should do unto others as should be done unto us, which is lawful. Christianity, therefore, if it is a lie, it is not lawful. And then if the lie is not even what's being used for the new lie, right, of this mock biblical reference point, or this mocking of biblical reference point that tells us that we are in a Christian nation, or that this nation is based off of biblical things, then we got to admit the falsehood. So a lot of this stuff, especially because a lot of you listen to me on a regular basis, you probably heard before. However, you'll hear me say some of the same things again, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? And the more we repeat it anyways, the better it gets in our psyche, in our psychology, or in our psyche, our soul. All right, and we can therefore start to release the soul ties in other places. How you doing, Shabbat? Shabbos. Excuse me, Shabbos. How you doing? So, I'm on repetition works. Amen. So, when you hear that America is a Christian nation, let's do it like this. As many of you listen to me on a regular basis, what is one of the documents that we can use an American document that we can use to automatically show that the United States of America is not a Christian nation. What's one of the first things we can do? And thank you for the love. What's one of the first places we can go and say, yeah, the United States of America is definitely not a Christian nation? Well, Constitution, boom, really big one, right? Because the Constitution does not protect Christianity; it protects freedom of religion. Religion, that, by the way, doesn't even mean that you have to believe in a higher power. Religion just means what you constantly do, right? So that's great. What's another one? Somebody said the dollar bill. Okay, we could talk about the contract. That's a check within itself. And obviously, it's not Christianity represented on your dollar bill or on many different bills that you're using, right? What's another one? Give you a hint. This one's written in the 1800s, right? Marines sing about it in their song, in their service song. How you doing, Anthony Garcia? Shalom to you. There we go. Thank you, DB. And how you doing, DB? The Treaty of Tripoli. There we go. Thank you, Sister Betty. Amen. The Treaty of Tripoli. The Treaty of Tripoli. And it's right when the United States of America, right? It even says, so the Marine Corps song that I was talking about, goes the beginning of it. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, right? Tripoli. Why is Tripoli important? Because there was a treaty that was done there, right? And the treaty that was done there is one where people who were in that area, they were aware of Christianity, right? And they were aware of the fact that in Christianity, it was used during the Crusades. So they didn't like Christians and Christian values very much in that area, right? So the United States of America writes in the Treaty of Tripoli in the 11th section, they say, hey, we are not, nor have we ever been, a Christian nation. Matter of fact, we have high regard for the Muslim faith. Now, why is that important that they say that they keep the Muslim faith in high regard? Well, that's due to the fact that if it was not for a Muslim sultan in Morocco, United States of America would never even at any point have been considered to be a nation and be sovereign, because nobody would do business with the United States of America after they became free of oppression in England. So since nobody would do business, sovereignty, right, power, rolls downhill. Authority comes down from above. So if a sovereign won't recognize your sovereignty, then you can't be a nation. So it had to be a Muslim sultan who, therefore, this is the reason why your constitution changed, right? Because you had a constitution. Even your Bill of Rights is from the constitution that already existed. But they have the constitution change and they make changes to it and they make it more acceptable for somebody who's a Muslim to be able to go ahead and get, and bow down to it, right? So they change up even the Masons at this point, right? Those who are wearing Masonic garb still to this day. If you look at the Fez and you look at what they're using and all stuff like that, that's actually a lot of Muslim and Arabic type garb, which you consider to be Arabic type garb, right? And please forgive me, I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it Afia Alima? Please forgive me if I said that incorrect. But thanks for being part of the community. So we have this mindset where we're doing this thing where we say, hey, Christianity is what this nation is about, and when in fact it is not. Right now, also too, pseudo Christianity. You assume that England, right, where the United States of America is a Christian nation, but England is not Christian. England, as a matter of fact, is what? Is brutish or British. What did the British or Brutish people do? Before they were even influenced by Rome, and then they didn't keep up Roman Christianity at first. They had to do what the Romans did, and then eventually they get to the pseudo Christianity or the pseudo biblical reference point, right? And then they start saying, "Oh yeah, we believe in the Bible because of what the Roman benefactors tell us," right? So that in and of itself is pseudo. It's mock. It's fake. It's false. Many people have been raised that, hey, in China and places like that, in Asia, but mainly China, Chinese and even Japanese and even Koreans to a certain degree, even though Koreans have Christianity and Bible reference there more so than anywhere else, any other religion there. People don't know that. But when you talk about China in and of itself, but before they were introduced to Buddhism, they believed that there was Shangdi, one true Elohim-like being. His name was Yahweh, right? They believed in Noah, they believed in Shem, they believed in Ham, they believed in Japheth, and they even had characters when they write out their words, right? Just like we do, they use characters. Their characters had to be based off a biblical reference point. So if you wanted to say there's a family, right, you had to write 3 characters superimposed. Those characters are 8, right? Those character, the character for water, and the character for boat, which means that they believe that a family is 8 people who are on water in a boat. That's where their family, that's where their idea of family comes from. Well, that makes sense if you believe that Noah had a wife and then he had 3 sons and 3 sons and they had 3 wives. That's 8, right? And they were on a boat or on an ark and they were on water during a flood. Right? These are things that you can study and see for yourself. So there's a pseudo Christianity that wants you to believe that China, or a pseudo way of thought that, hey, China had to be colonized to believe this. Was, in fact of the matter is, when they were colonized, even if you want to say mentally colonized, by a thought process called Buddhism, as other people brought things across the East, well then, yeah, they would. They would have been colonized, and therefore, but that's not their original belief. You can still visit many different temples and stuff there that actually mirror, in many different ways, the temples of Yahashua. And how you doing, Nancy? Right? So brutalize others, which is what they continue to do no matter where they are. Yeah. So these are things that we can see. So there's a pseudo Christianity, the myth that these are Christian nations, the myth that Christianity is what everybody was looking at. The myth, matter of fact, in West Africa, the myth that if you hadn't been colonized or you hadn't been taken, you would have never believed in the Bible. When we have reference points like Olaudach or Alavadach, but how we say now Olaudach Equiano, right? Taken, Igbo, Hibo, Ivri, Avra, right? That's what these words mean. Avra, Paleo or Hebrew, and Hebrew person taken. And when he reads the Bible, when he gets his freedom, he says, everything that I read in that Bible is what we kept. And he remembered his childhood and said, hey, I am an Israelite. That's what I am. That's what, not only what I was, but I realized that's who I am. I'm a Hebrew. You said, what part's not true? And welcome, hello to you. How are you doing? Which part is not true? Right. I mean, I don't mind you saying that's not true. If you can just help me out, I just put a lot of information out there, though. I'm going to give you the best opportunity to make sure you defend your statement. Everything I'm saying, well, then you haven't read, right? I don't have the book in front of me, obviously, but we literally have shown the book. Matter of fact, those who are part of Patreon, you still could look it up for yourselves. But there's books. And by the way, you can literally go on YouTube if you get a chance, look up by Chinese people themselves telling you how Chinese characters are used for that. Go look up the autobiography of Olaudach Equiano, Olaudah. Go look up his autobiography, right? Um, Go look up the Treaty of Tripoli, the 11th section. I'm giving you reference points because I want you to know. Look in your Constitution, see if Christianity is defended. Matter of fact, your founding fathers, if you're an American citizen, your founding fathers, I'll give you, well, let's just do this. Your founding fathers, they were deists. Benjamin Franklin didn't believe in Christianity. He believed that he could become a deity. He was a deist. George Washington, that's why he has a big obelisk up. He became your modern Osiris, right, and the father of your country, right? That's you could look at the back of your dollar bill. The obelisk is on there as well. He's a deist, right? Matter of fact, look at Mormonism. Mormonism says that you can become a deity or a god yourself. Look up what they believe about Elohim. They don't believe that Elohim, how we would say, but Elohim, they don't believe that Elohim is the creator of all. They believe that Elohim was a really great person on his planet he's from, therefore was able to assume the status of godhood, was given a wife, had a bunch of spirit babies, and that's how you exist today. And if you fought for righteousness with Jesus Christ and didn't fight for evil with the devil, then you were considered to be white, and you're white and delightsome. If you fought with the devil, you have no body. You're the fallen angels. And if you're somebody who's colored, you were a coward. You didn't fight in between. I mean, these are just things that you can look up. So if your whole thing is to say you're just wrong and not actually have reference points, or if this is something that's new to you, right, you might want to just listen long enough to be able to see what's there. But these are reference points you can just look up real quick. So I know that, thank you, moderators, for doing what you do. You could easily Google this information I just said. You can take a quick read. You can listen to some videos real quick. Matter of fact, I have some of this stuff posted on TikTok channels for you. If you want to even look through Kofi_43 too, or the original one, and then you can come back on, right? Or you can come back on and just say that everything I'm saying is wrong. But see, many people live by the pseudo and not by the righteousness. Many people want to be right and not righteous. So, right, you'll see all these people saying that's not true. This is not true. I didn't just give you something that I said. I didn't just say the Bible says only. I didn't just give you one reference point. I gave you several. But many people will not keep the commandments, including stuff like study to show yourself approved, right? Study to show yourself, then bring it before the Most High, see if it's approved. And then once it is, you can use it. So you can be a workman that needed not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. I'm not ashamed of one word that I've uttered, because every word that I've uttered is something that you can study in righteousness. Right now, you can pull it up. See, that puts you in a different place. Many people in the world, in the system, in the beast, they're connected to beast-like activity. They're connected to non-study habits. They're connected to things that are not righteous. And so if you give them something that's righteous, they don't like it. Right? This is just factual, right? So I'm not telling you stuff that's just random. You see, like, I don't believe in just giving facts without context. There has to be contextual facts. And so today in our reverse mythology series, we're talking about pseudo Christianity. I hear you, Mad Trucker. I appreciate you. Right? And how you doing, D? Thanks for being on. So we have to be in a righteous fashion, in a righteous mindset, even in coming to this. For many will have ears to hear, and will not, or ears and will not hear. But we want to get to the point where we have ears to hear. Right? If there's something that I'm telling you that's false, then bring it out. I've had things I've had to repent of where I've taught things incorrectly. I'm not somebody who's not without fault or blame at all. Right? But if I'm in the law and the law protects my rights, because law doesn't give rights, it protects rights, then if I follow the law, then it should protect my right, even my right to perfection in speaking a perfect word. How you doing, Minister Shante? Right, and thanks for the love, appreciate it. So, in all these things that we're talking about, we have to recognize and realize, and if I misunderstood what you were saying, by the way, please forgive me. I just was going off of yeah, but these are things that you can do. There are reference points, right, for these things that we're saying. So when we talk about even pseudo Christianity, once again, pseudo is a mock or a fake version or a modified version, and you've been raised, right? Even if you come out of it, you were raised at some point on Christian values, is what this stuff was made off of, right? Matter of fact, many of you who used to think, or might have heard, maybe you didn't think this, but you've heard this, like Cain was black. When he was marked, he was black. No, if you know Hebrew characters, marked is tav. That's what a tav is. So when Cain was marked tav, same thing that you see later on in your Bible when people sackcloth ashes and might mark themselves, tav. Or the same thing that you might see in Lamentations, I believe it is, tav, right? Right. This is something that's not new. This is not a Western romantic thing. This is not a Roman Catholic Church, which translates some romantic universal circus. Like, this is not, and I'm not even saying stuff once again. This is stuff people don't know what words mean. Cirque, church, literally coming from the word circus, right? You have a mindset, so you'll speak things over your life and don't even realize what's being spoken. Like you'll say, you'll hear people say the church is not the building, the church is in you. Why would you want a circus in you? Right? Why would you want a circus in you? Okay, do I believe? Hold on one second. I'm being honest with you. I've read that term, seen that term. I'm having a moment right now with that term. Though, give me a second to look it up. Once I see it, I'll probably be with you. I don't want to just answer the question without it. I think I know where we're going, but let me be honest with you, and let me look it up real quick. The falsely attributed works, texts whose claimed author are not true authors, or a work whose real author is attributed to a figure of the past. Yes, I believe that. So are you saying that therefore everything that I'm using, every single reference point that I've used, talking about how you can talk to Chinese people and listen to Chinese people tell you this for themselves, the reference point, I didn't even get into some. I mean, I could into the reference point of what in the Spanish Inquisition, who's considered to be a Negro. I didn't get into that, but let me just use the one. So are we saying that the reference point of Olaudach Equiano, who wrote it himself in an autobiography, an African former slave who purchased his own freedom and wrote his own story, does that fall in line with that? You see what I'm saying? What about the writings of those who are Native American in Tennessee who said that they're Hebrew? What about the indigenous / African people who became free, and once they did in Savannah, Georgia, built a church and they carved in Hebrew characters that you can still go and look at for yourself today, right? So yeah, I believe in those things. Matter of fact, I believe there's a lot of things that people say are in their Bible that they don't even realize, for example, that fall into that. For example, if you believe in the Old Testament or the New Testament, somebody wrote that in. We know that for a fact, right? So yes. Yes, yes. I believe that somebody could falsify documentation. Matter of fact, I believe that many people on here who are living by their straw man don't even realize it's a falsified version of yourself. That falls in line with that as well, right? But once again, that's why I didn't say, "Hey, I'm just talking about the Bible only." All right, you got to catch me now. So if you're saying like the 7 or 8 different things that I listed, I didn't even get into a long list of them. We can keep on going. I can list you 20, 30, 40, 50. Now here's the question: would you study and research these things to see if they actually are what you call them? And forgive me, because I'm being honest with you once again, I'm not great with this word. I don't pronounce it that well with the suit. And by the way, it's spelled with a E, not a O, right? Because it's sude in that place, right? Or right, but the sude, or the sued rather, sued epigrapha, right? Sued epigrapha or sued epigrapha, right? I believe that's how you pronounce it, right? Because it's not an O there, there's an E. So if we're gonna call it that, we have to make sure that first of all, is it sued? Is it mock? It's like the book of Hebrews, for example, the big book of Hebrews. Did Paul write Hebrews, or do people just say Paul wrote Hebrews? It doesn't have a signature in it, right? So if it doesn't have his signature writings and his signature style and anything, and all of a sudden, are we just saying Paul randomly just did something completely different, didn't identify it as his own writing or letter or works or words or beliefs or what he's persuaded by? Of course not, right? So we can't attribute that to Paul. Doesn't mean that it wasn't written by somebody at all. We just can't keep saying that Paul wrote it. How you doing, Tawana? Thanks for being on. So these are things that we're talking about, right? How you doing off grid? I'm not sitting up here saying, the random stuff or whatever. You said when you did SC? Okay, I'm not sure. I apologize. I'm not sure what that means. But like I said, if I misrepresented, I apologize. But I'm just, sorry, no buts. I apologize. That being said, right, we're talking about pseudo Christianity. This belief system that these things are Christian or biblical beliefs, or that these people believe in Christian values. Remember, the Christianity is nothing more than the mixing of iron and clay, right? You're warned about it in Daniel chapter 2. Babylon, right? Babylonian stuff gives birth to Persian stuff. Persian stuff is going to be giving birth to Greek stuff. Greek stuff is going to be giving birth to Roman stuff. Roman stuff is going to mix with the clay, right? For he is the potter and we are the clay, which really also talks about appropriation, right? Right? And how you doing, Minister Nice? And thank you again for leading Thursday Rising Prayer. Appreciate you. I tried to send you a text. I don't know if you got it or not, but yeah, like so these things are appropriated. That means if you're the clay, you're supposed to be the barometer. You're supposed to be the teacher. You're supposed to be the one that we look at and say, okay, this makes sense. This doesn't make sense. Who shall believe our report? Isaiah says it, and then Paul says it again, right? In your Old and New Testament. Right? This is stuff that's there. So pseudo Christianity. Now there's something that we taught on. I don't know if it's on the channel that got taken down a long time ago, if it's on this one. So if it's on this one, it's at least it's on this one now. Right. But the reality is, oh, and by the way, there's one more. Didn't we talk about this last time I was on? Either Monday or Tuesday we talked about this. Don't forget, there's even people that we know that went to Negro land, went to Guinea, right? If you know about those places in West Africa, before they were shaped into the new corporative territories that you know today, is places like Ghana and Nigeria and Cameroon, et cetera, et cetera. But when you go and research, there were missionaries that were sent there, right? And missionaries usually are sent to make sure that they start colonization. That's what you normally send in first, right? To colonize people, you send in a modified version of a belief system and something people can tie into. And the missionary, when it went over there, he tried to go in there with the stereotypical New Testament type thing. How you doing, Brother Craig? How you doing, Elman? And when he did, he went over there and he started realizing, he said, hey, these people believe in the Bible per se, but they believe in the Torah, the God, and their culture is the same as the Torah. And he said, so he told the missionaries, if you guys are going to go over to these places to try and give the word to them, you can't go over there without knowing your Old Testament. He told them before you go over, he's quoted as saying, before you go over there, make sure you know your Old Testament. Tell them the Old Testament first before you go over. Right? That's what he said. He said before you go over there, they hold certain things in there. He said they circumcised over there. Oluwada Equiano also said that as well. The slave who got his own freedom and then read the Bible and then said these are the very things that we kept. right? So we have this weird thing, right? Even if you go to East Africa, I didn't even mention them. Do we go over to East Africa and talk about Lalibellum, which a lot of people will tell you that stuff existed before Christ? We keep talking about it like it's a church, but the reason it was buried and all this stuff nobody can find is because it existed before Christ. You see what I'm saying? Like a lot of people don't want to have that conversation. And the reality is that's what where we're at is before zero, so to speak, right? People will believe he's probably born somewhere around 2 or 3 AC, but before Christ, that existed, right? And that would make sense if Moses married a Cushitic woman. It would make sense if Sheba, and if you don't want to give it Sheba, at least this woman that Solomon married, right? In Song of Solomon, she says, I'm comely or I'm beautiful because I am Cush. And she says that my skin is like the tints. I am black. I am Cush. I am black like the tints of Kedar. When you study the tints of Kedar, that which still exists today, look up the type of goat fur that they use. It is extremely black. It's blacker than my hair. It's blacker than this backpack. It's extremely black. She said, and then if you know about Kush people who went all the way up into what you call the Middle East and go all the way into Central Africa, East Africa, etc., you'll and even Kemet, because Kush and Kemet are the same family. Kush is the older brother, so to speak, right? Kush is like England and Kemet is like the United States of America in that relationship. And you'll discover that over in these places, right, they believe that their beauty standard in a lot of these places is that black skin, really light gums, and then or really white teeth, excuse me, and then really black dark gums, right? And am I buffering on TikTok? We just saw somebody say we're buffering. How you doing, Sister Iska? Welcome. And how you doing, Sister Nadine? And Yachmaya. Okay, I'm not. Thank you. And welcome, Yachmaya. So if this is the case, right? If this is the case, if this is the reality, where we know that this is how these people are addressed in today's society, in biblical society, things like that, then these are mythical, right? So getting back to pseudo Christianity, the only reason why we don't believe these things to be so is because somebody mocked it or somebody modified it, somebody lied. Pseudo. Going back to what I was trying to talk about, the reason you think Cain is marked is because somebody told you that meant black, because when they started getting into the Negro land and doing the stuff they did with these Negroes, and if you study once again who were considered to be Negroes, because remember in España, in Spain, right, somebody who's our color is just marron, right? But somebody who's negro, who's black, they're also talking about a particular type of person who they mentioned during the Spanish Inquisition. They did the same thing in Portugal as well. And what were they saying? They were saying these people had locks. They said they had extremely dark skin. They said they had really long beards. They said that they wore hoodies. They said they would be on street corners. Now, they were forced to wear the hoodies, if we be honest. But they said they wore hoodies. They said they would give poetry. They would put the poetry over music. They said they were extremely attracted to women, which basically was code for it was all right, acceptable for people to be bi or at least to be very effeminate. But these brothers were very masculine. You probably call them toxic today, but they were very masculine because they were attracted to their wives and they stayed committed to their wife. They said that they kept up with the Tanakh or the Torah, right? They call them Sephardic. You call them Sephardic Jews today, but they call them Sephardic because there's Ashkenazi, there's Khazarian, and then there's Sephardic. Guess who Sephardic are? Right? And how you doing? Is it Antron? I'm sorry, I missed somebody on there. I think it was Antron. And how you doing, Children of the Most High? If that's Sister Brenda, I'm not sure. But so we have to recognize and think to ourselves that we've been lied to, including with people who say they come out of Christianity, right? Which is basically a way of them trying to use the Bible, the mixing of iron and clay, of how they use it today, and be able to use certain things and not use other things. This is why on our focal scriptures we focus on John 14:15. I'm pagan because of what? You got to help me out. Right? I still don't comprehend. I don't mind you saying this stuff, but if you're going to say this stuff, at least tell me, what did I say that says that I'm pagan? What belief system did I uphold that says that I'm pagan? Help me out. You do no sense? Okay, I think you mean I make no sense. But once again, you got to be better. If you're going to troll, or if you're just going to automatically use. So look, let me help you out with apologetics real quick before we get ready. And thank you for the moderators. Let me help you out with apologetics. Apologetics, by the way, to apologize is to support or defend that what you believe, right? It's the art of doing so. So if you're going to get into apologetics or a debate, please, ma'am, please, sir, if you do not mind, make it a point to be accurate and make it a point to actually be able to say something. Because if you do something called ad hominem, which means literally to the man, that just means that you don't have anything. It's like when you're in school and somebody says, "Hey, you know what? You need to get you need to listen to the teacher. You need to be better in this and that." And you just go, "Your mama." Everybody in class go, "Oh, he's such your mama," but you ain't say nothing. So even if everybody laughs, you didn't really present a point. So if you just go, "You're pagan," you got to at least tell me why, right? And how you doing, Rain Summer, right? And Sun Trust and everybody who's coming on. So just helping you out. You said what part of Ghana? Which part of Ghana is it not? I mean, you want to talk about going to Amina Castle, right? You want to talk about, even, by the way, once again, these lines that people put on the map, we're going to talk about ancient Ghana, the original Ghana, right? Mali, Timbuktu. These things are, written down in scrolls. Do we want to go to Igbo, which is where our Soma Olauda Equiano? Once again, we're so into the pseudo, the fake, the mock, that we don't even address what did our people say, right? I mean, Accra, Super Accra, Millennium City. Um, I just mentioned over in the water. So, I mean, we can eventually start even going further and further and further. I know this is not Ghana per se only, but, we can keep on going. I just mentioned Amina Castle. I mean, that's it, right? So I just gave you reference point, right? But you see what I'm saying? Like, once again, we're having this context where we're saying, hey, everybody else is saying this and that, as if I've never been, as if I'm not Ghanaian, as if I don't know what I'm talking about, as if I've never just cracked open a book, as if I'm never open to listen and sat at the feet of our people. See, this is one of the reasons why the pseudo is there, because we keep saying, even the books that we're using to try and verify what if our people were in fact these things are somebody else's thing. And we have to realize interpretation by law means it has to be interpreted by the people, the person who wrote it, what they meant when they said it, the language they spoke it in, the timing of it, etc. Right? So we're using the pseudo, we're using the fake. Right? So we're using the fake. Okay, SunTrust, thank you. I'm sorry if I misrepresented. All right. So these are things that we have to realize. We got to be on point. Right? This is why we have to make sure that we're on point with this stuff. This is why we have to, and it's our pleasure, Baba Kasha, all right? And Teda for everybody, or Thawada, for depending on your culture or your lingo or your dialect. All right. So the point today we're trying to show in reversing the myths of what we've been taught is pseudo of the pseudo Christianity thing. We have to realize that these myths, just like other myths, like we've talked about with Zeus, and we talked about with Odin and Thor, and we've talked about with Christmas before. We've talked about with Thanksgiving, the myth that Thanksgiving actually is something that means we get together to eat. When Thanksgiving in its origins in Europe actually meant a time of fasting, which is why in your Bible when you see Thanksgiving or give thanks, it means two different things. Give thanks means give thanks. Thanksgiving in that Middle English, it actually is talking about fasting. You got to fast. You got to release something, right? So coming out of Christianity is one of the best things you can do, because you can't even comprehend your Bible in Christianity. You can comprehend it on a surface level, but you will not really be able to enter into the depths of it, right? Psalm 119. How do you read Psalm 119 verses 1 through 8 and you don't know what Aleph means? How do you read Psalm 119 verses 169 through 176 and you don't know what Tav means? How do you read Psalm 119 verses 32 through 40 and you have no clue what He means? How do you do so? You have to have a pseudo version of it. You have to have a mocked version of it. You have to have a falsified version in order to be able to do it. Because if you don't know what the Holy Spirit is talking about, the Holy Spirit in verses 30, I'm sorry, in verses 33 through 40, then you're gonna have a tough time trying to actually figure it out. If you don't know that verses 1 through 8 is talking about the Father, then you're just reading something that's nice, but you don't know that that's particularly talking about the source. If you don't know verses 9 through 16, it's talking about the Messiah who has yet to come, who's going to come out of a specific family, then you're not going to be able to read it intelligently, right? Intel meaning information. So there's a culture that comes with everything. So in pseudo Christianity, you have what I've been given by the Holy Spirit. When I've taught this before, we talk about it as like a 4-piece and a biscuit, right? Many people, if you go on to Popeyes or KFC or whatever, right? I think Popeyes is more known for this, right? You go there and you ask for a 2-piece with a biscuit, 3-piece and a biscuit, right? But we're gonna give you a 4-piece and a biscuit today. All right, it's gonna help you with some of this pseudo Christianity. right? It's going to help you with some of this pseudo Christianity. And once again, this is the argument, not just that if you are a Christian, you're bad, evil. I don't have a heaven or hell to put anybody in. That's not what time it is today, right? What I'm telling you, though, is that you believe that these nations or whatever you're doing is based off of Bible or based off of Christianity, and these people don't even believe in Christianity, right? I'm sorry if you're hungry, but hopefully you're hungry and thirsty for righteousness. For today, you shall be filled. Yeah, we can talk about King Leopold II, etc. By the way, been to Belgium, promise you, it's crazy. Even you go to Belgium, right, and you see, like think about the pseudo Christianity that the people of Belgium use, and at the same time, as they're literally taking off the appendages of children, of men, and of women, right, because they're not bowing down to them and they're not giving them rubber fast enough to be able to make money off of it, right? They're also then coming up with chocolate treats. Belgium known for its chocolate, and coming up with black hands as they're chopping off the hands here, right? And people don't talk about that. We don't even bring up Belgium. Belgium, who did worse than Hitler. King Leopold II did worse than Germany. But he was a Christian. The Bible declared that they could go ahead and do what they did. It's Hamitic, because Ham is cursed. Africa's cursed, but Ham wasn't cursed. Canaan was cursed. And Canaan was cursed as far as he had to serve Shem, which is why Israel, Shemitic people, walk in there and are able to go ahead and take what the salam, right, and make it Yahweh or Jerusalem. You see, right? But they use these myths. So we're gonna give you a 4-piece and a biscuit today, right, to be able to show you some things. Yeah, but Belgium is in cognitive dissonance. Come on, right? Right. So, and how you doing, Southern Belle? So the 4-piece and the biscuit, these are the 4 pieces, and then the biscuit on top of it. You guys already know how we kind of feel about it if you've been with us before, but we'll add in the biscuit too. So here are the 4 pieces and the biscuit. You ready? First piece. And if you're taking notes, take notes. If you want to go ahead and just hear this in your head a couple times so you can take mental note of it, study it later. But first piece is doctrine of discovery. First piece, right off the bat, the doctrine of discovery. We'll go over these in a second. I'm just telling you what they are. So the first piece, doctrine of discovery. Right? How you doing, sweet? Thanks for being on. Right? So first piece is going to be doctrine of discovery. All right, cool. So that's the first piece. What's the second piece? Second piece, after we do doctrine of discovery, then we have to talk about something called, and I know, see, once again, somebody gonna get mad, you're gonna get upset, some of you gonna leave because here they are talking about white versus black. I don't hate anybody. I'm just giving you contextual facts. We're talking about Christianity. Christianity is a very Eurocentric prospect and a very Eurocentric theology, a very Eurocentric belief system. All right. But so first piece is doctrine of discovery. The second piece, we just got to be honest, is called the white man's burden. It is what it is. That's what it's called. Look up these terms, by the way, before you get upset, before you get mad, before you get frustrated, right? Just look the stuff up. Okay. Let's look it up. All right. First things first, right? So first thing is the doctrine of discovery. First piece, doctrine of discovery. Second piece is going to be called the white man's burden. Look it up for yourself if I'm lying about this stuff or whatever. All right. Here's the third piece. The third piece. All right. So first piece, doctrine of discovery. Second piece, white man's burden. The third piece is I'm gonna make sure I go in order. Should I say this one or this one? Third piece, we'll say it is the third and the fourth kind of happen at the same time, and so is the biscuit. But we'll just go ahead and say the third piece is manifest destiny. And I might need somebody to keep me, if moderators, if you don't mind, I might need somebody to keep me honest. If I try to make the third and the fourth, if I try to reverse it, all this stuff is like kind of the third, fourth, and fifth part are going to all kind of be together. But the third piece is going to be dealing with what? It's going to be dealing with manifest destiny. Okay? Manifest destiny. Manifest. Something's got to manifest. We're using spiritual terms and lawful terms. Right? If you go on a trip on a ship, right? Here we go with law, right? Maritime law. If you go on a ship, what is a manifest? Ooh. See, when we talk about we want to manifest something, you got to know these terms. You said the Pope recently apologized for the doctrine of discovery, but did not say we will return all y'all stuff and pay dividends. I didn't even know the Pope apologized for doctrine of discovery. Thank you. That's something for me to go down the rabbit hole. Right? Right? Okay. So a record, right? If I have a manifest, I got a record. So if it manifests, that's a record of it. So when we say, for example, Hebrews 11:1, right? Now faith. Now means you got to know Hebrews 1 through Hebrews 10. At some point, we'll probably have to go through Hebrews and do a little series on that, right? But Hebrews 11:1 says what? Now faith is what? The substance of things hoped for, and what? The evidence of what is not yet seen, right? The manifestation. So hope comes first. What my hope is built on, if I exercise in hope, that becomes faith. Faith, right? And when I begin to have certain works with my faith and works coming together, then I get a manifestation, a record. Now I got a receipt, right? If I work backwards, my manifest or my receipt, my record comes from what I've worked in faith, right? And because I worked in it in faith, it ultimately came out of what I hoped in. And we remember we talked about this word hope. This is why we got to reverse mythology. I can hope in negativity, right? There are some people that hope that negative things happen to them because somebody will pat them on the back and say it's going to be okay. I'm not saying we shouldn't have take care of people, take people's feelings into account. Hear what I'm saying though. Catch this. Some people hope in negativity, right? Some people have learned that nobody will really deal with them. Like they'll just treat them like everybody else. But if my car is messed up one week and then my marriage is bad and somebody is yelling at me and I'll never fit in and this and that, they'll live by that for 15, 20 years, right? And they hope that'll become their hope. Then they hope that if they keep doing that, right, they'll start having faith in it because they'll see that when they work it, they get a manifest, they get a record where somebody comes by and the receipt, the record that they carry is, hey, it's going to be okay. Now, don't help me to become okay. I want to stay in that. My hope is not in I want to become better and come out of it, right? Right. Either way, we should take your feelings into account. We should take your situation into account. We should love you where you are. But I'm just saying, right? Some people don't want to go to the place of now my hope is to come out of it. I've dealt with people in life coaching to where you will try to get them to say, hey, let's get better. Hey, let's have an opportunity to become a nation. Hey, let's do that. Hey, let's do that. And a lot of people are not on that. Amen. Today is Shabbat. Yeah, today is Sabbath. Amen. Right? On your Hebrew calendar, according to your Hebrew calendar, sundown or 6 o'clock p.m., whichever one you go by. So early Shabbat, Shalom to you. Amen, Sister Monica. How you doing, Yaakov? Right? So, but your hope. So see, this is why we got to reverse the mythology. So anyway, back to our list, right? So number one is going to be what? Doctrine of discovery. Number two, the second piece is going to be what? The white man's burden. Number three, the third piece is going to be what? Manifest destiny. The fourth piece is going to be what? The lost cause. The lost cause doctrine, the lost cause rhetoric, the lost cause. Right? People in the United States of America should know about the lost cause. Some of us don't. If you're not aware of it around the world, you'll have a problem. You've been affected by it, but you don't even know that it's something that affects you. So we'll talk about that today. The lost cause. How you doing, Nestor? Thanks for being part of the community. And then, so first one is doctrine of discovery. Second piece. So first piece, doctrine of discovery. Second piece is the white man's burden. Third piece, manifest destiny. Fourth piece is the lost cause. And then the biscuit, or number five, 4 pieces in the biscuit. Your fifth one for the day that we'll go into is Darwinism, or we could just put it as evolution. Now, there are 6 types of evolution. That's why I'm careful not to only call it evolution. So there are 6 types of evolution. We'll deal with the 5th one, which is Darwinism, the one that many of you use every day. Right? How you doing, Tennessee? So that's what we'll talk about today. So those are your 4 pieces in a biscuit. Number 1 is the doctrine of discovery. Number 2 is the white man's burden. Number 3, manifest destiny. Number 4 is the lost cause, and number 5 is the doctrine. I'm sorry, and number 5 is Darwinism, or also known as evolution. Come on, everybody got those? I'll repeat it one more time. Let's just make sure, right? Number 1 is what? Doctrine of discovery. Okay. Number 2 is what? White man's burden. Number 3 is what? Manifest destiny. Number 4 is what? Lost cause. Number 5 is what? Darwinism, or evolution. Once again, I'm careful not to just call it evolution because there are, in fact, 6 types of evolution. Darwinism is the 5th type of evolution, right? A lot of people don't know that, by the way. They'll just go evolution. Well, there's evolution of everything. How did something come from nothing? Then there's evolution of the stars, right? Then there's evolutions of elements, right? Then there's evolution of the earth, right? Then there's evolution of the actual, of like from animals to humans or rocks to humans or whatever, right? And then there's evolution of, which this one's not really evolution, the 6th one, but people throw this out there. And so if I were to agree with any evolution, I don't, but if you want to use those terms, then out of the 6, we can agree on the 6th one. The 6th one, they basically just say, so macro evolution, which is supposed to be us and coming from, evolving from whatever animal or whatever race or whatever species that evolves. Macro evolution is number and I'm sorry, it's very windy out here today, so it is what it is. Hopefully you can hear me. But macro evolution is number 5. That's Darwinism. Microevolution is number 6. Microevolution says that if 2 of any species come together, or 2 of different species, but if 2 of any species come together for the same species, then when they have offspring, their offspring will look like both of what they came out of, might have characteristics of what came before even that, and then it's slightly therefore different than what came before it, which I would just call that, sex, right? But and therefore having offspring, but they would call that evolution. So if you want to say we agree with any of them, even though I wouldn't call it evolution, we can agree on the 6th one, right? So a lot of people aren't aware of that. So I'll give them one more time, and then let's go back to the first one. First piece, doctrine of discovery. Second piece, second piece, white man's burden. Third piece, I'm trying to go in order. What's that third piece? Manifest destiny. Fourth piece, lost cause. And then that biscuit is Darwinism, or what you might call evolution. Okay? And how you doing, Brother Kenyatta? How you doing? So now, and I'm sorry, give me a second. I'm trying to make sure we get the podcast uploaded and then we can get Facebook on. So now let's go back though to the doctrine of discovery. Right? In this series called Reverse Mythology, we're reversing the myth. And today we're talking about pseudo Christianity, a fake thing called Christianity, or you thinking that things are based off of Christianity, based off of biblical beliefs. All right. So the doctrine of discovery, right? The doctrine of discovery, important that we go over that, right? It actually starts, at least so for the most part, it's agreed that it gets its start. I might not be spelling pseudo correctly. I think I am. But the doctrine of discovery gets its start in 1452 by a pope who has decided that they're going to get really, really heavy into slavery, and they're going to start to use law, right? Or a fake version of law, make something legal in Roman Catholicism. In Roman Catholicism, if we're going to just be honest, Western Rome or Roman Catholicism is basically Europe. At this point, everything in Europe is under the Pope. That's just the way it is. You can try to make this whatever you want. The reality is, if you're European, then you belong to the Pope, right? A lot of people might not even know this, but the word Europa, which is where we get European from, and we could talk about, obviously, there's African spirits that were worshipped that eventually the Romans kind of took in and even might have even called Europa. We're not 100% sure if this is accurate or not, but there is some evidence that there's some smoke there, and where there's smoke, there's fire, right? But if you call yourself European, the word Europa simply means anything that belongs to Rome. That's really what this word boils down to, right? That's really what this word boils down to. And so if you are under the Pope, you're part of what used to be Western Rome, right? By the way, nowadays, if you're a Protestant, that Protestantism basically comes out of out of Rome as well, basically. Like, so the way it works is you had Rome split into two, right? And then when Rome split into two, basically finally the Western Roman Empire gets power with the help of some of the Eastern Roman Empire still, and everybody that's under them is under Western Rome and their belief system. The Western Roman Empire then, as even when Rome goes down, other people try to say that they come out of that empire so that they can now have everybody try to bow down to them. This is why you have people like Charlemagne, and then eventually you have people who start talking about France this and Normandy this and Prussia and all these people, but all these, and then eventually the same families are just marrying into each other, right? And you're having a lot of incest. It's causing a lot of issues with rulership and governance, right? You're just having people who are trying to say that we are this same Roman family. And remember, Europa was not even a continent, right? Remember, Europe, now you consider it to be a continent, but what is the definition of a continent? Anybody remember? What is the definition of a continent? See, they lie in your face. We're talking about pseudo Christianity. Let's also talk about some of this pseudo mythology. Let's also talk about some of this pseudo mapology. Right? Hey, how you doing, Mr. Spears? Amen. Right? Thank you all. And I'm sorry, Charles, my brother Charles Greer, and I see Charlie on there too. How y'all doing? But a lot of people don't know, right? That the definition of a continent is what? A large landmass completely surrounded by water. Right? If it's not a large landmass completely surrounded by water, then guess what? It's technically not a continent. Okay. So we got to at least admit first things first. What is, right? What is in fact a continent? Like, let's not lie. Let's make sure that we're on point. Right? So a continent has to be a large landmass completely surrounded by what? Completely surrounded by water. If it is not completely surrounded by water, if it's not a large landmass completely surrounded by water, then by definition, it cannot be, as much as you might want it to be, as much as you were taught it was, by definition, it is not a continent. Right? So you have, some of you are living on pseudo continents. Right? So watch this. Very simple. Like, let's make this as simple as the nose on your face, right? As plain, excuse me, as the nose on your face. Let's go by kingdom sense and not common sense. A lot of people who swear they live by common sense don't even realize that you're not even supposed to be commoners. So let's take this whole commoner thing out. Let's stop this myth that you're a commoner. If you're in the kingdom, you're royalty. So I'm not going to treat you like a commoner, and I'm not going to give you common sense. Right? That's why they lied to you and stuff. That's why they treated you and did the stuff in your Bible that they did to you back then. Anyways, remember Martin Luther and his fight? The reason why he was, one of the things that was part of his fight, besides the fact that they were trying to change the shape of the world and all that stuff and everything, and they were trying to change the creationism and all that stuff. But also one of his biggest issues with the Roman Catholic Church was what? Was that you lying to people, and when you start lying and changing things, you're gonna have issues. And so, if we're gonna go ahead and talk about the earth and everything, if you change it, right, and if you change the sun, and if you change the worship, but also one of his things was, hey, you guys keep changing the language. He said we got a problem because you guys changed the language, but the number two, you won't put it in language where other people can see it. So therefore, you just tell them whatever you want, and they have to believe it. But how does that allow them to become effective in the kingdom? Right, he makes it a point to say that. He keeps saying, like, you're gonna have a problem because you're changing everything. You're not even, and then you're not even giving the people a chance to see if what you're saying is true in the first place. Any of the world's main continuous expanses of land surrounded by water. Right. So let's not change what a continent is, and maybe you'll comprehend how the world should come together as one. If you say you want to become together as one, then let's see actually what makes you one. You said contradiction, you less. I am convinced by scripture and plain reason. I do not accept the authority of popes. Oh, yeah, I hear you. I'm not right. So watch this. So they said that a continent is a large landmass completely surrounded by water. That's supposed to be what it's fine. Then they defined it. They broke that down, and then they redefined it. They broke it down so much that you don't even know that it's no longer fine. Right? Let's go ahead and refine it. Let's make it fine again. So here is. If it's a large landmass completely surrounded by water, well, let's do it like this. Australia is a large landmass completely surrounded by water. It's actually smaller than what you see on the maps that they show you, but nevertheless, Australia is a large landmass completely surrounded by water. All right. Antarctica is a large landmass completely surrounded by water. Okay, we're cool. All right. North America, is it a large landmass completely surrounded by water? South America, is it a large landmass completely surrounded by water? The answer would be no. Matter of fact, an American, the original definition of an American, is a copper-colored person indigenous to America. America was considered to be all the way from the top of North America all the way down to the bottom, right? So that is one large landmass. So that would be three. Now here's the next question. Is Africa completely surrounded by water? Is Asia completely surrounded by water? Is Europe completely surrounded by water? The answer to all three of those questions is the same, no, which means that they're all one continent. So really you could say there's four continents, but then technically, let's go deeper than that. Are all of them still connected to each other under the water? So you could say technically they're actually still connected, meaning that it's one continent. And by the way, whether you believe in Pangea or you just want to believe in what the Bible says happened after the flood, the earth split. So at one point we were all there. That's why when you read the dimensions of the Garden of Eden and you see the waters and stuff, the earth was together. And if the earth was all together, then yeah, look at what Pangea was, and then you'll say, oh, okay, I can see how this river and this river and this river and this river would have dealt with the east of Eden, which is where the garden was. Yeah, okay, so the Garden of Eden could in fact be in all these places when they were all together as one, right? But pseudo mapology says something different. Yeah, even the tectonic plates are connected. Matter of fact, even if you look at the tectonic plates, if you were to go to Israel and you were to look over towards Africa, when you would look over towards Africa, it has a sign as you're looking over there, and it's going to say, that according to the tectonic plates, you are actually in Africa right now. Even to this day, even with them not liking you, it still says that, right? These are not things that, once again, we're just coming off the dome with. These are things where you could just literally look up for yourself. And thank you, Sister Nadine, and thank you, everybody, for being on. Appreciate you, right? So we have to recognize and realize and be honest about what's happening, right? We have to take time out to have honest dialogue. So the doctrine of discovery comes from this same mindset, the pseudo Christianity, where people are thinking this is Christian and this is biblical and this is a truth and all this. And once again, I'm not a Christian. I'm a believer of the Bible. I'm a follower of the way. I'm Yahashua, right? I'm Yahweh's child. I am an enmity with the devil, but I'm not a Christian because even pseudo Christianity would have you believe that that Christianity is what corrects the Old Testament. It's the correct way of doing the Old Testament when there's no such thing as old and new. It's the same. It's all cultural. So, right? So how do we recognize the doctrine of discovery? The doctrine of discovery is made by the Pope, 1452, because they got heavy into slavery and they started realizing that they can make a lot of money off of certain people called Negroes. Negroes does not mean black only. Negro does not mean African, right? Matter of fact, if you look up Negro or Negro, right, and you go back to the most ancient ways of it being said, it actually has its start in West Africa, at least Northwest Africa, but even somewhat into the Midwest Africa. It actually are people who were described there. Later on, that's why they'll call that same area of land Negro land, right, when they start putting it on their maps. And those maps existed up into the 1700s. And you can still look those up, by the way. Look up online. You can probably, I don't know if you can Google it this way, but you probably can. You could probably Google or put in Bing or whatever your search engine is, but you could probably Google Negro Land Library of Congress, because the Library of Congress has the map, has some maps with it still on there physically, and also they'll show it to you virtually. They upkeep it to make sure that you can look up the story. Even in his story, he has to admit that this is there, right? And how you doing, Tuckwa, if I didn't say so earlier? Right. And I think you said earlier, I'm sorry, I just realized I didn't even address it. You said the Gentiles versus Israel or something like that. So I did see that. I apologize. Sorry about that. Right. So when you study, and by the way, when you research and you look in, Negro land is up top, and then look on the bottom in the Guinea part, and you'll see, oh, wait a minute. In Guinea, it says that this is where the scattered Israelites are. Oh, wait a minute. It says this is the kingdom of Judah. So there's people over there who have kingdoms, right? And have a kingdom, and they specifically call it the kingdom of Judah. When we scattered, we know where we went. And wait a minute, if these are the places where we're going to see slave castles and stuff, where people are leaving from places like Elmina that I mentioned earlier, talking about Elmina, and then when we leave Elmina, then from the point of no return. Oh, okay. And also they're called Negroes up in Spain. They were called Negroes up in Portugal. They're called Negroes over in Saint Thomas. They're called Negroes in Jamaica. They're called Negroes in Haiti. Wait a minute. Right? So we can see these things very clearly. We can operate in this very clearly. It's not that difficult for us to see for what it is. It's right in front of our faces. Just because people are trying to tell us that we have no clue what we're talking about, obviously we must be on point somewhat. we must be on point somewhat, because it's not that hard for us to be able to find, right? And yes, people can go into negus and use and Niger and Niger and all these different things or whatever, right? I'm talking about particularly this word Negro that existed even in African culture. It goes back, and obviously we can talk about the different dialects and stuff like that that travel across. Okay, so. Right, Port Royal as well, I believe. Yeah, so all these things, right? But the doctrine of discovery, they start getting into the slave trade heavy, and not just doing what they were doing to the Irish, doing what they were doing to people who they considered to be Slavic, which, by the way, is a Norse term, not even where you guys think it is. It makes its way down to other people because these myths that we've been talking about in this series, they start making their way other places. But you also got to deal with the Slavs, right? Shalom, how you doing, Brother Allen? So you got to deal with even the Slavs, right? So Yugoslavia and then Slavic people and stuff like that. Slav is where you get the term slave from. It was okay for them because that's in their belief system, right? Slav is something that in Norse theology, and they don't call it Slav, but even in Greco-Roman theology, stuff like that, in their belief system, in their myths, right? That's something that is allowed. And you even have certain deities, you call them gods. Remember, God is a Germanic term. Deities are different, right? But they kind of start being used interchangeably by people who are colonized and then by people who are dealing with not colonization, but gentrification, right? When people are dealing with these different items, then yeah, you're going to have these different things come up and start to kind of get so twisted that you can't even tell what came from what came first, who believes what. Do these things actually represent what is said? And then you get now you had a whole argument. Well, in the Bible they had slaves, and Israel was allowed to have slaves. That wasn't the word that we use. It's not even Slav. It's not even a thing that we would have used. And if you study it long enough, you'll be able to comprehend. Oh, wait a minute. They had indentured servants. They had laws to come against slavery. And if the indentured servants did something wrong, you would punish them just like if somebody else did something wrong. If somebody was free and they messed around and offed somebody who might have had something inside of them, right? They had a penalty. If you were a indentured servant and did the same thing, you had a penalty. Nobody talks about it like that because and now people have gotten to a place. See, what you guys were into slavery. No, no, no. Now you got to get into, which we'll get into later, the white man's burden, this doctrine of discovery, the manifest destiny. That's when they started changing it. People like Thomas Jefferson, who have slave Bibles and still rip pages out of their Bible because they don't want to deal with anything that actually says to treat slaves properly, right? You're talking about a different culture when somebody else got their hand on it. You're not talking about the origin. How you doing, Venus? Right? You're not talking about the origin. See, in our culture, indentured servitude only lasts as long as we sign a contract, which has to be only up to 7 years, or because every seventh year, everything's supposed to be wiped off the books. And if you don't do that, somehow you find a way to finesse your way out of that. Every 50th year, everything's taken off the books. See, so we might have what you call serfdom, and our serfdom looks different, where it's indentured servitude. But everybody's got to be allowed to be free. Chattel slavery says as long as you are in this family, you a slave. Russian slavery under Catherine the Great, look it up. She made everybody in their churches serfs and made some of them slaves. Serfs and slaves are basically treated the same way, right? In their culture, the king is up here, royalty is up here. You have lords. The lords fall under the king. They get a lot of stuff that the king has, and as long as the lords are okay, usually the king will be fine. Underneath them, that you have free people. Free people usually have to live outside of somebody's gates, because if you live in somebody's gates, they usually want you to become what's called a serf, an indentured servant. And a lot of their serfs end up being treated like slaves, but they aren't quite on the level of slaves. And then you have slaves. Slaves are just supposed to be basically until your life ends. And a lot of them, including places like I just said, Russia, you continue to be a slave. Matter of fact, it's weird. See, once again, pseudo Christianity, pseudo science, pseudo history, all this stuff. Look up how people will say, you, even our own people, right? Because they just hate America so much, so they want to go ahead and let other evil exist in their mind and have free space. So you had all these people not too long ago when Russia started coming and doing the whole Ukraine thing. They started saying, "See, Russians never owned slaves." You even went off of what Putin and other people were telling you. Russians really never owned slaves. See, and they're better than America because they never really owned slaves. They never did the slave trade. Are you serious right now? Who is the greatest Russian poet? Some in Russia, right? And I believe some of us, even if you study his poetry, would claim that he is the greatest poet of all time. But who is the greatest Russian poet of all time? Help them to put their language together. Do you know his name? What is his name? Who is the greatest Russian poet of all time? I'll wait if you need to Google it because I want you to get your mindset. Some of us don't know these people, right? Right? Alexander Pushkin. Aman. Pushkin, right? He is African. He is African. Might be Sierra Leone, something like that, but he is African. Might be Igbo, I'm not sure, but he's African. Now, how did he get over to Russia, though? Oh, no, Aaron, I didn't even think that we were in disagreement. I apologize if I came off with something. I might have missed something you said. I'm sorry. Oh, okay, yeah, I missed something you said, so sorry. Right, now, Alexander Pushkin, his grandfather is known as somebody named Gannibal, not Hannibal. Hannibal is before Christ. Gannibal, Gannibal, right? Right? And how is his last name Russian, right? Gannibal. Gannibal was brought over as a slave. As a child, he was captured. He was royalty. He was brought over, and they liked him a lot, right? And as royalty as well, this is how you do it. This is what they did with Daniel. Remember Daniel? He was actually Belteshazzar in Babylon, right? But he was Daniel, where he came from, and he was in the Israelite court. So what do? When you capture somebody else, then you take their court, especially the young ones. Daniel was a teenager, right? Daniel was a teenager. Ananiah, Hananiah, Azariah, those are their Hebrew names. You know them as their Babylonian names, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? But Ananiah, Hananiah, Azariah, they are Avra, they are Hebrew, they are Yahashua, they are Israel, and all four of them were in the court, right? That's why four of them pray together before Daniel interprets the dream, and then three of Daniel straight because of what he did interpreting, but the three who helped him in prayer, then they're challenged the next chapter. They're all in the court, and they're all trying to be forced to bow down to Babylonian spirits, Babylonian idols, right? Right? And how you doing, Jacita? And how you doing? I missed somebody. Is it Reverend Yawa? I hope I'm saying that correctly. Thanks for being on and being part of the community. So basically, you take somebody when you conquer them, you take the young people who are in court, right, who are looked up to as being high officials and supposed to be higher class and all that, and the people who come in the bondage with them, they do the really bad labor, and the other people, they're still lesser class, but they're lesser class around the court of the king, sometimes even included in the court of the king, right? Look up even people like what's his name, Genghis Khan. Even look up Genghis and others who would capture people, but he would make sure then that he had some people in his court, and he was very much so about, hey, give me a piece of this and give me a piece of this. And people call them great kings and wise kings because they'll take everybody else's culture, they'll appropriate it, and as long as you make him the one that you bow down to, right? Because he's Genghis Khan, he's the one who's basically supposed to be the ruler from heaven. Right. Well, they did. Was Nebuchadnezzar doing the same thing? Well, you see the same thing with Gannibal. You have the Russian Tsar or the Russian Emperor, whatever he would have been at the time. Please forgive me if my lingo's off, because they went from Tsar to Emperor to King, and eventually to, the Stalin and Lenin and all that other stuff, right? But you have this person who's up top, and then you have Gannibal, who he likes a lot. He makes him the slave of his son, so he makes him his slave, his son slave. He makes him his son's slave. And then he does so well, though, and he sees so much in him, and he sees that he's growing, that he's like, you know what? He actually adopts him into the family. So Gannibal goes from being a slave, right? So he was royalty in Africa. He becomes a slave in Russia. Then he becomes family, adopted into the family, and actually becomes a general that helps Russia to fight. And even though, because of the color of his skin and just because of him being a foreigner more than anything else, people don't want him to be around and stuff, but they can't stop him. Just like they couldn't stop Daniel, they can't really stop him because he keeps getting victories and he's attached to this thing. He keeps winning and winning. He's got all this stuff going on. And so they even exile him a couple times, but then they still have him come right back in when they're in trouble. He wins some battles for him still, even when being exiled. And then he goes right back to being exiled because he ends up having love, right? The Stockholm syndrome. He ends up having love for his father, or this father figure, but this person treated him like a son, took him out of slavery, right? So at some point, even though he knows ultimately that person took him from his family, he's like, well, I respect him as a father figure, and he could have let me just been a slave. So out of respect for his father, he keeps doing this stuff. Matter of fact, Catherine the Great talks about him, considered to be by many the greatest Russian ruler. I wouldn't necessarily say this, but considered by many Russians to be the greatest Russian nobility and royalty that they had. And she wasn't even technically Russian. That's a whole nother discussion. But long story short, right? So that's what they do. They bring other people. So Gannibal was brought over. So guess what? Now look at his grandson. His grandson is Alexander Pushkin. That's where he came from. So you see what I'm saying? The pseudo stuff, even pseudo history, where people will change stuff up. Oh yeah, Russians never were involved in slave trade. You wouldn't even have the Russian language and a lot of the poetry that you have today if it had not been for an Alexander Pushkin. Later on, somebody who's a slave and eventually works their way up or whatever from different things, but who's very popular in Le Francais and around the world, writes books that you know, like The Count of Monte Cristo or The Three Musketeers, right? You have Alexander Dumas. And he has two sons, Dumas II, Dumas III, all of them Black, African, right? So the slavery thing, looking for particular people and looking for these people who were extremely intelligent and smart and could do things, would even create things down the road, like the cotton gin, to where they didn't want to be as much in the field as what they were and go through as much stuff as what they were going. So anything that could make their life better, they would do it. And then even though they didn't get credit for it, hey, at least we don't have to be bleeding out here with our hand, because cotton is something that's really rough to deal with. How you doing, Joseph? How you doing, Sister Bree? Right? So you're having a lot of different things coming together. How you doing, Joker? Thanks for being part of the community. No, Gannibal was not Peter the Great. Peter the Great was actually the wife of Catherine the Great. So that's how she became Catherine the Great. Peter the Great was somebody who was wilding out, who was having a whole bunch of sex and stuff. They didn't want to be tied down to one person. Catherine came from, same family, but couple cousins removed, whatever that is. I don't know. But Catherine was married to somebody else in the family or whatever. He didn't even really like her, but he ends up marrying her or whatever. It's not clear if they even really had sex with each other, if more than just the one time they had to consummate, but it's not even clear if they did that. And he was out there cheating and stuff, and he was actually spending money. He was doing a lot of stuff, and Russia was falling and failing really fast. And Catherine, who already didn't like her husband, she actually took stuff seriously. He didn't. So the religion of Russia and all that, their Christianity, their version of it, Peter didn't even really follow that. He didn't do certain things. Catherine actually learned several languages, including their main language. She learned their cultures, traditions. She left her religion alone, actually took the religion on. And then eventually, she was out there cheating and stuff too. And then eventually she eventually, when people get tired of Peter the Great, then she ends up actually taking over for him, and they end up offing him. And like overnight, basically, she takes over, and then she starts doing diabolical stuff too, but at least does better in their eyes than Peter did. So two different people, right? Gannibal is not. Catherine the Great has conversations about Gannibal, so you can actually, we actually know, like who he is to her and stuff like that, and she actually even, gives respect for certain things that he's done. I think Alexander Pushkin actually has conversations with Catherine about Gannibal, his grandfather. So I think that's actually what we have notation of. So how you doing, Black Seal, and everybody joining? So but yeah, so all this stuff, this is dealing with the first piece we talked about, which is the doctrine of discovery. Doctrine of discovery is something to where people who were looking for Negroes, and really looking for anybody, but at this point, looking for Negroes in particular, made it lawful to go ahead and find them. Remember, it starts in 1452. Now, why is that important that we catch that? and we recognize this law, we recognize who we were and how people are modifying and all the pseudo history and stuff that's going on, including pseudo Christianity, and us thinking that Christianity is what all the stuff is going to help us to come and be righteous and everybody to come together and sing kumbaya, or we are the world. We know what kumbaya actually means, but like people saying all the stuff we're going to do. The reality is that Christianity is used to enslave people, right? Like England's first slave ship, supposedly, right, is pretty close to one of their first slave ships. If not, it's called Jesus, right? Literally, Jesus. So we're coming to get slaves on Jesus. This is a maritime law thing. This is a spirit to this. We're not even thinking about it, right? So I believe in the Bible, but we can't deny that people are misusing, misrepresenting, and appropriating stuff and twisting it on you, and then telling you the stuff that you actually wrote, you actually believed in and stuff. No, don't believe in that. Believe in this thing that we use. They came and they twisted it just enough to be able to get you to believe in the people who would now put you into slavery. Oh yeah, if you go to Ghana right now, well, I'm talking about a lot about Ghana because for me that's home. But you go to a lot of places, right? And you're going to see Chinese, Chinese characters, Chinese symbolization, Chinese men and women all over the place, right? If you go to some of the casinos, going to be Chinese. The people who put in infrastructure are going to be Chinese, and they have it set up to where if you don't go ahead and pay them or give them what they want or whatever, they'll shut your infrastructure down. This is why, even though I appreciate the heart of Akon, right? That's how you pronounce it. It's Akon or Akon. But I appreciate his heart and what he wants to do for his people, but he's dealing a lot with China, and people don't know. Yeah, he became a billionaire. That's great. And he's doing stuff. He's trying to put in stuff. He's trying to make a whole city that's going to be like out of this world, futuristic. But but people don't recognize you're giving your people away. You're not developing it. You're not teaching your own people how to do it. You're just saying, hey, we'll pay you guys and give us infrastructure, whatever. Right? Now, let me put this out there. I'm not 100% sure how all of his inner workings work. If he's trying to raise children to become people who are doing this and they can take China off, right? Eventually, at some point, they can be just purely African. Why not? Right? If that's the risk you feel like you're taking now, maybe you can turn that into something else later down the road. It is what it is. You're in the land of your captivity. You feel like you got to do what you got to do. How you doing, Sherlyn? Thanks for being on. Right? But for the most part, it doesn't seem like that's what's happening. It seems like we're just going from one kind of colonization and gentrification to another. So, but it comes from mindset of doctrine discovery, where we become okay with this. In Stockholm syndrome, we look up to whoever oppresses rather than who is depressing this stuff. We look up to a new vice rather than having a system that's a device. Right? That should be our mindset in our culture. We don't like to build up culture. We don't even want our own culture. If it's our culture, it doesn't seem to be righteous enough. It's our pleasure, Nancy. Thanks for being on again. So we want to make sure that we get this correct. So the doctrine of discovery in 1452 is specifically created to be a doctrine. Once again, what is a doctrine? See, because you'll think it's only religious. Doctrine just means a belief system that's upheld by a group of people. So if you are a Republican and you say you're a rightist on this and you're pro-life and yada yada, it's a doctrine. If you are a Democrat and you're a leftist and you believe that it's about everybody getting a chance to do this and everybody should be who they want and a woman's right for her body and all that, that's a doctrine. That's all that means, right? Doctrine is a group, is a belief system upheld by a group or a people meaning nation. So we have a doctrine, right? Because we are a people, we are a nation. The word people doesn't mean a group of persons only, right? A person is singular, persons are plural, but a people are persons who are part of the same nation. Okay. And that's why your nation has tongues. That's why the Bible even says people of all nations and tongues and things like that. Right. Because in that word and means at, it literally means going toward. So a nation has tongues. That's what it's saying. Right. But people, we don't recognize language and how that works. So when you're talking about a nation, the nation has to have certain laws, rules, requirements, traditions, beliefs, culture, etc. If it doesn't, then it's not a nation, right? A kingdom is a nation, a king's dominion. It is the place where he dominates, or even ion, the yon on the end, actually telling us that it is a noun, a person, place, a thing. So the king, the place that the king is, and the things that the king does is what makes it his dominion. So if you're in his dominion, in order to serve the king, you must serve him the way that he lives, right? The place that he lives, and you must also serve him with the things that he does. If you don't, then it's not a kingdom and you're not in it. You can say that you're in the kingdom, but if you won't do what the king does, then you're not in it. Right. So in this manifest that's come out of the doctrine of discovery, what was this supposed to be? The doctrine of discovery is something that means that, hey, we have a belief system, uphill belief system, a doctrine that says that if we discover you, right? So discover. So you're covered by something we're going to discover. I want to help you see etymology, words. Man should not live by bread alone, but by every word. We're talking about our theme for, or our series is called Reverse Mythology. We got to reverse the myths, and in reversing the mythology about pseudo Christianity, we have to figure out what they're actually saying. What did they do? Even by the words that they use, even by the things you speak over yourself. Right? Right? So watch this. So watch this. So the doctrine of discover. If I cover it, if it's covered already, and I discover, all right, catch it now. It's very slick how they put this stuff in there. If it's covered already and I discover it, right, it's not saying that I found it. It's saying that I'm taking the covering off. Okay. There's somebody that will tell you that we just discovered that we just discovered gorillas in the beginning of the 20th century. But people were telling you for the longest time, don't go in certain parts of those the high grasslands and the low grasslands and all that in a certain area because there's gorillas in there, and people didn't believe it. So we knew it. It was already covered. But somebody came in and said, "Oh, when we found it, it's now something you can look at. It is discovered. It's not yours anymore. It's ours. It's not natural anymore. It's ours. Yahweh didn't have it. He didn't make it. He didn't cover it. It is." You see, you got to be careful. People use certain words, and we get so used to using them, right? Well, when I discovered, Baba, why would you want to take the cover off? Unless it's a cover that doesn't belong there. So the doctrine of discovery is not saying that I found a place. The doctrine of discovery is not saying that there's nothing alive there. The doctrine of discovery is saying that I am allowed to take off whoever's covered. Whatever it's covered by, I'm taking that off. There you go. Recovered, covered again. See, discovered. Exactly. Remove the covering. Come on. Right. It's important that we catch this. And thank you. How you doing, Sister Denise? So it's important that we catch this because now the doctrine of discovery says that we have an uphill belief in our system, in our culture, doctrine. The Pope has put this edict out, and he says, as we go from place to place to place, what does it mean to discover? What are we saying? We're saying that this is literally the law. This is the law they live by, right? If we show up to, if we show up to, it wasn't called this back then, but let's just call it what we call it today, Haiti, or Dominican Republic and Haiti. It was once just one island with a group of people that lived there. And we show up there and we don't find they didn't quite use the word white yet, but we don't call somebody who's European, somebody who's Roman Catholic, and somebody who's male there who's already covered this. You see that? If there's not, so if they haven't covered it yet, then we have the right to discover it and recover it. Discovery Channel. Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, there's a lot of stuff we don't recognize it because we're not aware of what it is. Right. What they were saying was, so that's why when people ask this question all the time, you get to a certain age, you start saying, how did somebody discover where people were? Well, what they're saying is that they didn't even consider them to be people. They were just Negroes, or they looked Negro-like. Right. You'll even hear and read a lot of stuff that says Negroid features when you read things from this time. Right. So if they have Negroid features, that means that they're Negro. They're Negro enough. One drop rule. They're Negro enough. They look like these Israelites enough that we went ahead and dealt with in the Spanish Inquisition and Negro land that we've been enslaving over there. And all. They look like it enough. So when we show up over here, all we got to do is say, see, they look like them. They're not like us. Even the one drop rule stuff that they do, they're not like us. And therefore what? We are allowed to discover. They have their own land, right? Remember, we talked about this a lot recently. when it comes to colonization, the colonizer never identifies with the place they colonize, or with the people they colonize, rather. They never identify. An Englishman was not, see this, they've actually broken protocol. This is why a lot of people wouldn't do business with them when they broke off of England, right? When America said that they're Americans, the original definition of an American is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. So if they are a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas, but you're saying you discovered them, or I'm sorry, you're saying that you are them, not just that you discovered them, but now you're saying you have not only appropriated, you're saying that you are become them. You are a liar. It's not even lawful. They had to wait for somebody to go ahead and say, we'll do business with you before they were even considered to be a nation. Around the world, they were looking at them like this. Around the world to this day, how you doing, y'all's firstborn? Around the world to this day, people be like, yo, y'all did that wrong. Y'all did them dirty. Even if they don't like us, they'll say, you didn't do that correctly. Why? Because you never identified with who you colonized. If you're an Englishman in America, you're just simply an Englishman in America. You might have power over them. You might have taken off of their ability to cover themselves. You've discovered them, but you're never supposed to say you are them. Now, what's the lie that they're trying to tell you and I today? They're trying to tell you and I, stop calling yourself this American and that American, blah, blah. White people don't call themselves this American, that American, which isn't true. There's still people that say they're Irish American and Italian American and stuff like that. But nevertheless, they say we don't say that stuff. So you shouldn't say it. Just be American like us. Problem is, you're not American. Right? You're the non-American. If you say that there's a such thing as a Native American, then how can you be American? You're not. You are a colonizer of America. There's a difference. How do you say you're Canadian, but that's a colony? You're not Canadian, right? Even by your own statutes, Canada is a territory. That's the territory. That's the colony. But you're not a Canadian. The Canadian is a fake version of the native, right? The Native American is more Canadian than you are. Right? You can't say this happens in this been happening in UFC. Those who pay attention to UFC, all these people talking about who's the best African fighter. Is it this white African? Is it the black African? This and that or whatever. You're not South African. You're trying to break protocol. You are a colonizer of the South African. And if you would admit it, by the way, I'd actually have more respect for you, and let's have a conversation as far as how can we reverse some of the stuff that's done. And if you want to reside here, fine, but you will only reside here as somebody who came because of colonization. Or if you want to say that you're grafted in, fine, come and be grafted into the culture, to the community, and to our ways. But don't sit up there and say you're an African and then at the same time be against us and ride with the colonizers because you've been grafted into the colonizer and not into the African. You see how we have to know how things, we have to be aware of how these things work. Right? How you doing, Paul? Head Rasta? Thanks for being on. You said your mother is a colonizer, your father is a native. What does that make you? It makes you whatever, in all honesty, just being blunt, just being truthful. It makes you whatever culture that you want to be a part of. People are grafted into Israel, right? Watch this. Ultimately, I use terms like this to help people to know where we're from and to tell you the culture that I'm from. So yes, I'll say I'm Ghanaian. I'll say that I'm Shwe. I'll say I'm Ashanti Shwe. I'll say I'm Ashanti. I can say I'm part Igbo. I can say I'm part Kemen. I can say that I'm part Cherokee. I can say I'm Anakitawi. I can give you all these things. But ultimately, guess what? My real culture is Israel, and that means my real culture is the kingdom of heaven. And so if somebody were to be like, well, in Ghana, they're still with Onyon Kapon. That's where it is. I'm sorry. Onyon Kapon, I don't serve him. I don't worship him. Just like I don't serve God. I don't worship God. I worship Elohim. Different. So on Yom Kippur, I know in our culture, that's something that was a big deal, but I know that's ultimately not really our culture because my culture is the kingdom of heaven. Right? So ultimately, yeah. Right? Like my mother is, I've shown pictures and stuff, and I think I've even shown pictures of my grandparents and stuff on here before, on my mother's side, because of colonization and things that happened to their parents and stuff and their grandparents and stuff, due to chattel slavery, stuff that happened to the women specifically. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, she looks You know, people would doubt that. To me, I say that she looks to me like the Queen of England, right? But she passes very well. My mama is somebody who, if you look at her features, you can tell more. She's, you know, well, of a different of our diaspora, but she passes very well. Would oftentimes even just call herself white, right? If you were to look at my siblings, they look what you call mixed race, right? And you look at me. If you look at me carefully, you might even say I have certain features that you would say are mixed race, but people don't do that. They just go, "Oh, look at your color," right? So I know I'm not saying this color, but I'm saying culture matters though. And I I'm not saying now your grandfather did that to, or your father did that to your mother or whatever, blah blah. I'm just saying at the end of the day, there's a culture regardless. Now, some people are trying to say they're going to make a new culture. If you're going to make a new culture, I mean, hopefully that works for you. I'm just going to operate in the culture that's kingdom. And the kingdom culture says that, so I'm not saying, I say this all the time. Even when we talk about racism, it gets difficult because people think it's as simple as black and white. Spirit is spirit. A lot of Babylonians, you could say, look like you. Who gave the name heaven? Well, when I say heaven, I mean Shamayam. Shamayam comes from something that be culturally more mine, right? Is that better? Or if you want to say, if you want to call it Zulu, you want to say that better, depending on which one or whichever one you want to use, right? But I'm saying specifically, right? I'm using heaven because obviously we're using a language right now that somebody gave us, correct? I mean, I could just say, Yahweh Elohim Masada Adam Yahasdan and Yahweh, like, and I just said something completely wrong and ignorant. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, what's the point in talking to that right now, right? So I'm using something obviously that we all comprehend, but doesn't mean we have to understand. Understand means that be your standard. So I'm using the language, sure, because that's if I were to start speaking just only. And by the way, I don't even speak modern Hebrew. I speak Paleo Hebrew. So if I were to speak Paleo Hebrew, even people who swear that they know Paleo Hebrew, and you're using modern dialects and stuff, and so in the modern dialects that you're using, you probably still wouldn't comprehend what I'm saying, phonetically or otherwise. Correct? So yeah, I get it. Right? That's a great point to make, but that doesn't mean that I should just. Are you saying just don't speak it English? Right? Like that doesn't make sense for this platform. Okay, but I get it. Right? Great point to make. Doesn't necessarily fit in, at least to the teaching wise, the stuff that we're trying to teach. Right? I could just be like, hey, there's classes for that. There's times where we do stuff outside of this. Matter of fact, some of the stuff that I would say if I were trying to say it language wise and stuff like that, TikTok would take down. So there's sometimes I don't go into certain things unless it's on other platforms because I know that some of you wouldn't even be able to get what I'm saying on any level. So it's a great point that you bring up, right? But it doesn't make sense as far as the teaching. Okay. Appreciate you though, right? That's a great point you bring up. But teaching wise, it doesn't make sense to just be like, well, who taught you heaven? I mean, yeah, I could say, like, we've been using mythology, right? This is probably your first time listening in at all. So we've been doing this series for since Thursday last week. Maybe Friday. Thursday was Q&A. So Friday last week, we've been doing this series. So just to bring you up to speed. So for example, why do you say hell? You say hell because of Hella. Why don't you say Sha'al? Or why do you say shield? Shield is because somebody took it to something else and it was the best they could do to transliterate. But transliterations could be dangerous if you don't know how stuff translates, and not everything translates, which is why you need to know proper interpretation, which means you have to know the language, right? Why did you talk about Sol Evictus or Baldur, or if you want to talk about Ra, or if you want to talk about all these people, and you're talking about the S-O-N, it's the S-U-N. That's actually very Roman Catholic. It has nothing to do with what even the people of Kemet were doing. And not everybody in Kemet actually believed that you were supposed to worship multiple Netjers. Some of them believe that you should have one. Look up Akhenaten and the fight that happened with him as one of many different things that we could talk about that happened in multiple dynasties. So yes, I could just be like, oh yeah, that we're using the word heaven. I do that with firmament a lot. I'll say, yeah, so-called firmament, but firmament comes from Uranus that we've talked about in this series. If you don't know about Uranus and firmament, it's going to be difficult for you to even recognize when I say what I'm talking about. But so I could just say every time, but would you catch it? Do you even know what is? If I were to say Rash, if I were to just go Rash, uh, and Alav, do you know what that is? Right. So some of the things have to be taught where we are. I appreciate it though. Right. And how you doing, thoughts with SJ? So we're talking about the doctrine of discovery, right? And we're talking about all these things that happened. This was something that was made specifically so that chattel slavery could start focusing specifically on Negroes, or what you call Black folk, or African, Native, Indigenous, Aboriginal, et cetera, et cetera. That's what that was there for. Melanesian, Polynesian, Austronesian, etc. That was what it was about. Was trying to find anybody, and if you look Negro, if you had Negroid features, whatever, and we come there, we have the right to discover. You already have covering over it. You already have a belief system over it. You already have a culture concerning it. We're going to go ahead and take that from you, and we're going to say that we have the righteous mindset to do so because we are Christian, or faux Christian, or pseudo Christian. All right. Next thing up. So we go from there. That's the first. And I'm sorry, to finish it up real quick because I got distracted a little bit. To finish it up, if you really want to know how much it was really put into motion, not just 1452 Doctrine of Discovery, but also here's the next date you need to know: 1493. Why? Well, look backwards real quick. In 1492, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue. In 1491, the last great Moorish king was defeated. Right. And people don't realize this and recognize this, but basically Spain, at least Spain as far as you know it today, was not even a country. All right. Until 1491, basically. It was starting to get there. We won't say there's no history of a Spanish people, but Spain, as what you think about it, is not even. Spain was always under somebody else's tutelage or under somebody else's authority. Spain was a place that many people ransacked and went through. And so Spanish people really are a mix of a lot of different people. Right. Even when people talk about Spain and Mediterranean things and things that are very Moorish and built and stuff like that, because people of Morocco, Moors, they live there. So if you go to before Christ, right, if you go to thousands of years, more than likely 2,000 years or so, but let's just say 1,500 or so years before the Romans came in, and the Greeks kind of sort of, you could say, are in there too, but Carthage was over that area, North Africa. Carthage was over that area. Then you go from Carthage to the Romans were able to defeat the Carthaginians, right? Hannibal put up a great fight and everything. There were just 100 years of 3 different wars that popped up. But long story short, Carthage loses. Then you have Rome, right? Rome even goes in and just kind of destroys most of North Africa for the most part, including Carthage itself, the city itself, the main city, the capital, Carthage, where they even salt the earth. And then Julius Caesar actually has a dream one day, goes back down there, rebuilds it. But they had literally salted the earth so that herbs couldn't even grow. They go and retreat the ground and everything. They repopulate it, but at that point it's Roman. So people, when they talk about Morocco and stuff like that, you're dealing with European already. You're not even dealing with African anymore, right? So, but they salt the earth, they do all this stuff. Then Rome kind of rebuilds it. Then after Rome finishes or whatever for a while, then you have other people who kind of come through there or whatever, in and out. And then, but it's mostly same kind of people, Romans mixed with some Africans, so they've still been around, stuff like that. Then Moors come back up there again and take over the territory from the 700s all the way through 1491. In 1491, the last Moorish king loses, the last great Moorish king loses, and then from there, it becomes the Spain that you know it today. Ferdinand and Isabella had married. Ferdinand had a smaller territory. Isabella had a bigger territory. They married together to kind of fight against the Moors. Isabella had grown up, or Isabella, I'm not sure which name she went by, but either way, she had grown up. Her grandparents were part of the Crusades, so she looked really big on going into lands that were Israelite, that were Negro, not just Moreno, right? But Negro land, Israelite land, and they were going there to make sure that it was theirs because they were doing what? Christianity, pseudo Christianity, saying they were the actual people. The people of Europe were fighting themselves. The Pope said, hey, we can't have you guys losing, especially my power, because I'm over all you. I'm the King of Kings. So he says to go fight those people over there. That was those brown and black people over there. They've taken our land. We are the real people who have a right to it. This is when this New Testament stuff, y'all be talking about all the way back to, no, you're going to the wrong time frame. The New Testament stuff starts popping up. And starts going, see, all that other stuff doesn't matter. The Torah doesn't matter. The people who keep the Torah don't matter. This is part of the doctrine of stuff leading up to eventually the doctrine of discovery, to where now we have the right to go around the world and do what we did at the Crusades. And anybody who's Negro or has Negroid features, they're allowed to be slaves, right? And we will make slaves out of them because they are of the Old Testament belief. This is not something I'm just making up. This, right? This is the reality. How you doing, LaShonda? And I'm sorry, somebody said I'm breaking up. Am I breaking up for everybody or just some on TikTok? Can you hear me on Facebook? Can you hear me on YouTube? All right. How you doing, Bradley, by the way? Sorry for missing you. Right. How you doing, Lucy? So these. All right, we clear? Yeah. So these are the things that we're dealing with. Is literally they made up a law to look for people who are Negro or have Negroid features. One drop rule. Are you mahogany? Are you ebony? Are you red bone? Are you somebody who's close to blanc petit or blanc cajon? Or are you somebody who's lighter skinned, dark skinned, all the way down 40 shades, literally, of people who are in Haiti and in places like New Orleans and stuff like that. All these places. This is where this stuff comes from, right? This was a specific doctrine made to say that it is more than acceptable for you and I, right, as far as people who were of that ilk. Because even Roman Catholic Church, not every pope is as white as what you think they are either, right? But by this time, Doctrine of Discovery is basically saying if they're not European like us and they don't believe in Roman Catholic theology like us, then they are allowed to be enslaved. Right. And when does that happen? Once again, 1491, the Moors are defeated. 1491, they ask permission to start going and looking for Negroes. The Pope says he's all right with it, especially by the time Christopher Columbus comes on board and he sailed with Negroes. Right. He sailed with Africans. Right. Because not all Africans are Negroes. Right. But that's in their mind. That's how they think. So he sailed with Africans from East Africa to West Africa. He's even written down, he has evidence by his own hand saying that Africans are the only people that know how to go from where we are to the other. So you've been fed a lie that Christopher Columbus, he sailed over trying to get to India. But how does he sail over to get to India if the Greeks knew about India? The Greeks were in charge. They were the world power way before Rome, way before Western Rome, way before the Roman Catholic Church, way before the 1400s. The Greeks knew about India. You know how we know the Greeks knew about India? Because the last Greek kingdom, the last Alexandrian kingdom to go down was in India. We know that the Greeks knew about China, right? Further, we know they knew about that. How do we know that? Well, we know that the Greeks and the Chinese, they write about each other in their documentation, in their historical documentation. How are you looking for India? We know that they knew about something called the Far East. Remember, see, East is just this whole thing you call about Middle East. You think that that's a people or a group of people or what they should be known as. That's because of this whole 4-piece and a biscuit thing we're talking about today, right? The reason why there's a Far East is because if you were East and close to Europe, you were just East. If you were way, way far away on the opposite end of the continent, because remember it was all Africa, then it was African Asia, then it was Eurasia, then it became Europe. They just made up a continent. They weren't even a continent. Right. So they said Europa was anything that belonged to Rome. If you belonged to the Western Roman Empire, the Roman Catholic Church, then you were Rome. And if you were east of them, then you were what? You were east. If you were way far, you were far east. But what if you're in the middle? Well, then you'd be a Middle East. Right. So 1491, Christopher Columbus and all the stuff, Isabella, they gone to the Pope. They ask permission. Pope says you can go ahead and get as many slaves as you want. Just make sure you bring me back some too. And then Christopher Columbus tells him he's going to look for the land of Azeroth. This is how he gets the contract, if you will. This is how he gets the position. All right, Venus, have a great day. Thank you for being on. Right? He says, this is how I get the contract. I'm looking for the land of Azeroth. Where do you get the land of Azeroth from? Where do you get the land of Azeroth from? And I apologize. I don't know if you were joking or not. I muted you just for 5 minutes when I muted you. But, as I say all the time, my wife, the Honorable Amma, I give all honor and praise to the Most High. So even if you're just joking like that, I can't accept jokes like that or whatever. So thank you very much, but I can't accept the joke. So just letting that be there. But you're muted only for 5 minutes. When you come back on, feel free. But even if you're just joking, I got to make sure that that's just playing. I'm on. How you doing, Sister Keita? So literally, he tells him, I'm going looking for the land of Azeroth. When he says, I'm looking for the land of Azeroth, where you get that from? 2nd Esdras, chapter 13, verses 40 through 45, where the northern kingdom, At least what you call the Northern Kingdom. Remember, at one point the earth was flipped, right? But I'll leave that alone because some of you don't literally know terms like the world is flipped up, right? I like my world got flipped, turned upside down, or en le français, le monde à l'envers. The world is upside down. That's an actual thing that happened. That's not just a random term, right? If you know how maps work, north used to be considered to be South Africa was north as far, almost as far north as you get, right? Right. Amen, babe. Right. So South Africa, right, was almost as north as you got. Antarctica was considered to be north, right? It's been flipped, right? Nevertheless, so you got but also when you talk about second Esdras 13, chapter 13 verses 40 through 45, it says that they're the northern kingdom, right? So the top 9.5 kingdoms, because the way it goes, basically, Israel was all a kingdom. Judah was on the throne. Judah started tripping, especially after Solomon. They were already tripping with David and Solomon a little bit, and then it got really, really bad. So everybody leaves out. The other 11 branches, they left. All of a sudden, out of those 11 branches, though, the Levites are mistreated, right? Because they're supposed to be a people that, by law, they're not allowed to have a 9 to 5. They're not allowed to have a job, right? So as they do kingdom work, as long as they do kingdom work, everybody makes sure that their needs are taken care of, right? However, since that doesn't happen, right? They basically half of the Levites stay and start marrying the families and start trying to get land on their own and stuff. A lot of them come back. Then you have eventually the Benjamites come back down. Then you get where the northern kingdom is taken into captivity. They don't ever want to come back, though, because they say we're tired of kind of being captured. We're being unfaithful. They say, let us go look for a land that nobody has ever inhabited so we can make sure that we worship Yahweh the way that we're supposed to, right? And even though that never really came into full effect, they were able to at least separate where they didn't keep being influenced by other people, right? So when they go looking for Israelites, negros, right? When they go looking for these slaves, Christopher Columbus says, I'll find the land of Asheroth. I found people who are talking about the land of Asheroth. Who did he sail with? Africans in East Africa, Africans in West Africa, even Negroes in West Africa. That's what he tells them. So then he gets permission from Queen Isabel, who's looking to do what? Establish a new kind of crusade and go into Negro lands, Negroid people with Negroid features. What is the Pope looking for? He's looking for doctrine of discovery. Anybody who's now we're saying, dear, the people that the Bible is talking about. We are that nation. We're the new Christian nation. Right. What are we talking about today? Pseudo Christianity. And so now what do? They send Christopher Columbus, and Christopher Columbus gets what? An Avada, or a Hebrew interpreter, to bring with him that speaks Negroid language and is able to use a Negroid language or a Hebrew dialect to even be able to talk to people over there who have the same weapons, same belief system, and say that they've been talking to people from West Africa for centuries now. Right? And he takes the same path over that Africans did. Right? If you want to say more, fine. More is a catch-all for usually just meaning black. Right? I know some people have made more a whole belief system, a whole nation. More just used to be a group of nations. Like you can say Israel has 12 branches. You can say Moors have many branches of people. Right? So when somebody pulls out and says Moorish, you got to comprehend Moor is like saying black. So for the Moor that says, don't call yourself black, call yourself Moor. Well, unless you're from Morocco, you're not, you can't say that Moor is your nation. Right? So in all those different things that are going, right? But nevertheless, right, if you're talking about all these different things, you're speaking with the same thing. That's why that's why the Roman Catholic Church, by the way, look at the paperwork, look at what's written. They never said we're sending you looking for Moors. Matter of fact, if you were a Moor, they would kind of distinguish that from a Negro. And a Moor was allowed to even have some kind of nobility. Negroes, eventually, they started taking their nobility away because that had already started with the Spanish Inquisition. Right? So there's a difference between a Moor and a Negro. Right? And whatever Paul Phillips said, thank you for, I didn't even catch what it said, but thank you for, apparently they said something crazy. Okay, thank you. So you have to realize and recognize all these different things that are going on, all these different things that are taking place, all these different things that are happening, right? And all this is doctrine and discovery. So look at the timeline. Once again, 1491, the last great Moorish king loses his life. 1492, Christopher Columbus sails the ocean blue. And then what happens in 1493, once they get the information back that, oh, like these people over there, they say that they're Negro. They say that they got Avda. They speak Hebrew dialect. They make the same weapons they make in West Africa. They're not surprised by us coming over here. Or they're surprised that we came over. They're not surprised that people can come over. Matter of fact, they're mixed in with people who are from over there. And they bring it back. They prove everything to be so with the metallurgy and everything. And so what happened in 1493? The doctrine of discovery was being used in 1452. Now it becomes like an extremely official document. They up it in their doctrine. They say now this is tantamount to what we do. 1493, doctrine of discovery secure. Right. So from that point on, anywhere that they went, they found somebody who was Negro or Negroid with Negroid features. What did they say? We now have the right. You cover your land. We now have the right to discover it because you're not what? European, right? You're not Roman Catholic. And therefore, since you don't have authority over the earth. You're not even a person. This is why the three-fifths compromise, people mess this up. Three-fifths compromise that comes later comes out of mentality and stuff like this because the slaves were considered to be 0% human. That's why that you only paid three-fifths tax on them. You paid three-fifths tax on them because they were not human. They were property, right? So if you were in the South, you paid three-fifths tax on your property. If you were in the North, you paid two-fifths tax, right? So don't get it twisted, people. That's why you got to remember, like Malcolm X taught us, as long as you south of the Canadian border, you south. But really, we could say as long as you south of, as long as you south of the North Pole, you south, right? Don't get it twisted when people be up here trying to tell you and I, right? When people are trying to tell you and I, oh yeah, this and that or whatever the third, and all this, and the South did this. No. The South paid three-fifths taxes on slaves because they just had more. They had more property. And the North only paid two-fifths tax on slaves because they had less property. That's it. You were still 0% human being. You were not three-fifths. It would have been, even though that's still crazy to call me 99% human and call you 100%. That's still crazy. It's still wild. It's still some very like hyperbolic and hyper eugenic type stuff to do to a people, a nation, or a person in general. But that's not what they're saying. They were saying literally, you are 0%. Therefore, we can now pay property tax on you. You are our property. If you're somebody's property, you're not a person. This is why a lot of you are artificial persons. You are in debt. Anybody that's in debt is a slave. A slave is not a person. They are property. Don't get it twisted. This is doctrine of discovery stuff still going on, right? Let them discover, especially if you haven't got your paperwork together, let them discover that you're making money and it's not taxed. What would they do to you? I know we're gonna finish this up, I promise. Right? I promise we gonna finish this up. But watch this. Let them find out that you're doing something getting paid under the table and that they're not taxing it. Let them find out that you're selling weed. Weed now is supposed to be legal most places, most countries, which is states or countries. Most states or most countries, weed is legal. But let them find out that there's a place to where they're not getting money off of it. What they're gonna do to you? Right? Because you are property. If you were a person, I don't owe you anything. Unless we're talking about commerce, unless I'm getting the benefit of privileges, why would I own you for something that what if I grow it, right? I watched over it. I made sure that it was clean. I went through all these different things or whatever. Why should you get in on any of that? Right? It's because you're property. Straw man, birth certificate, registered to the state, registered to a country. And then take your straw man and allow, remember we talked about this yesterday, the difference between the state of California and California state. The state of California, the state of, right? Like you have the state of the union address, never the state of the country address, never the state of the United States of America, because you're not a country, but the state of the union. So if it's the state of California, they're talking about the state of you belonging to the federal government, a fake corporation, a bogus corporation, a pseudo nation, right? But if it's California state, well, then that's the country, right? The state of New York is different than than New York State. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Income and wages. There you go. Thank you, sir. Income and wages. Very different. Okay. So all that stuff, right? But so the doctrine of discovery, they're still doing it today. When they discover, see, you're already covered. You just covered. Man, this is mine. Right. That's why you got to get your paperwork and stuff together. That's why you got to know the law. Man, this is mine. Why am I worried about getting this? This is something that the Most High has allowed me to be over. Right? So I take stewardship of it. No, register it with us. No, register it with us. Why is it not registered with us? Why didn't you pay taxes on your car? I don't have to pay taxes on my car. Yeah, you do, because you registered it with us. How you doing, T? It doesn't have to be registered with the state at all. But you got to have the paperwork. You got to know how to do it. If not, then just make sure it's registered correctly. Because if you don't have something showing who it's registered to, then they do have a right to go ahead and say, well, you got it in our land, in our state. You don't have anything saying that what's on our property ain't ours. It's all about property. It's all about commerce. It's all about money. It's all about ownership. Somebody trying to own you. Well, to get your paperwork in order, there's a lot of stuff to it, which I don't know. Honestly, I'm not even really allowed. I've tried to teach this on here before, but we do have class and stuff. I've literally tried to teach this on here before, and they turn it off. They cut us off. So, but that's not what today's about anyway. But I mentioned a lot because you got to know about sovereignty. Sovereignty, by the way, also too, just to be honest, it's not even a money grab thing. I don't teach, because there's some people, I'll give you stuff offline. I won't be able to go as deep as 2-month long classes, sovereignty 1, 2, 3, etc. Black's Law Dictionary. I won't be able to go that deep. But some of y'all, I've talked to you offline. I'll give you certain information for sure to help get you started. But remember, sovereignty is not even just about paperwork. It's about a lifestyle, right? Kingdom is not about paperwork. It's about a lifestyle, right? Like you got to have a lifestyle that matches up. Even if you get your paperwork done and then you still break the law, well, then you're not sovereign anymore, because sovereigns follow the law greater than everybody else can. All right. But let's get back into how you don't remember me. So doctrine of discovery, that's the first piece. I spend a lot of time on that, because once you get that first piece, then the other 3 pieces of the biscuit, right? There's 4 pieces of the biscuit, so to speak, right? Doctrine of discovery, white man's burden, manifest destiny, lost cause, and Darwinism or evolution, or that type of evolution. Once you get doctrine of discovery, the rest of this is going to make sense. I mean, it already should make kingdom sense, because I'm not treating you like commoners. You're just not common sense. This is a kingdom sense conversation, right? However, this is what so let's look at it like this. So let's look at it like this, okay? So we have the doctrine of discovery. Now, next comes something called the white man's burden, right? I'm not sure what time frame we want to say this officially came. I'm going to look it up real quick. I'm not sure what time frame we want to say this came in. I'm trying to. So a lot of people would just only label this as a poem, right? Actually, you know what? So see, I went out of order. Hmm. Hmm. I went out of order, yo. I never put this number 2, I guess. Well, see, you know what? No, I'm not going to go ahead and do that. White man's burden, we'll leave it as number 2. Actually, it's over the poem that's written, by the way, by Rudyard Kipling. If you don't know about Rudyard Kipling, that's the guy who wrote the Jungle Book. Remember, we talked about the reverse mythology, a lot of these myths and things that are being written about you and stuff you're still watching and stuff your children are watching. You don't even know how to watch it and what the mindset of. There's certain things they're putting in there to put a certain mindset in you, right? So Rudyard Kipling actually wrote a poem about it in 1899. But the white man's burden still really existed beforehand, right? But Rudyard Kipling, when he wrote the book, the Jungle Book that many of us know, there's actually other versions of the movie Jungle Book, not just the Disney versions. And there's some that actually try to give you more than just, I think the story of Mowgli is nothing more than like a couple paragraphs or at most a chapter or something like that of the whole book, right? But most of us only know the story of Mowgli. And remember, Disney notoriously and famously will not actually put, they'll take books to make movies out of, but they don't ever. Matter of fact, remember Walt Disney used to tell people, don't even read the book. They would just come up with stories outside of the book, right? I don't know what's going on. Hold on one second. Okay. So a lot of stuff that you've seen, like, you did Peter Pan, you don't even know what the word panic means, and you don't know who the spirit of Panic Pan is, and don't know about the stuff to Cupid and Pied Piper and messing with little boys and all. Like, you don't, people don't read that. People don't know about that spirit and stuff like that. Or you just see Wonder Woman and you don't think to yourself, why is Wonder Woman tied up with a rope? You know what I'm saying? And how she lose her powers. And look at the man who had a family, and him and his wife had a slave of for their needs when they needed to essay somebody, and so somebody who was into that stuff, and they would tie her up, and then they match some Amazonian stuff, which is really African stuff and stuff together that actually happened in World War II, going against the Italians when they tried to come against them. And it was actually an African woman force, right, that fought them off and things of that nature, giving more credence to some of the stuff that people were talking about. And yes, can you say that the Greeks believed in the Amazonians? But the reality is that they got that from a lot of stuff they heard about us when we had a lot of armies that would be nothing but women who were not even allowed to have children, things of that nature as well. I'm sorry, the whole premise of Jungle Book is weird. A little boy alone in the woods, even that by itself. So this is the same Rudyard Kipling. But when we're talking about the white man's burden, it literally is just something that says the following. It is the burden of white men to ensure that everybody becomes civilized. Period. Yeah, Woman King. I didn't want to say the movie by name because Woman King in and of itself has been changed, and a lot of stuff that's in the movie is not necessarily correct and indicative of what those people did. And there is a lot of truth, even though I think they overdid it because they just didn't like the fact that there was a black movie per se. But yeah, there were people that were righteous in coming out and saying, how are you going to use these people who enslaved people to be able to go ahead and make a movie about, although we don't want to talk about the fact that, yeah, they did this, but this was also something that wasn't just an African thing. This was also, remember, they thought that they were dealing with a kingdom from outside, and they figured, okay, these white people are coming, they're destroying people. They won't destroy us, especially if we're bigger and badder and all that. They'll leave us alone, not realizing that it wasn't just a one little country by itself, but it was all these European nations coming together, right? So there is a little bit of some of that's going on for sure. So the Woman King, even the one who's Woman King, I forget what the names are now. It's been a while. I really, to be honest with you, forgive me. I found the movie to be a little boring, in all honesty. So I fell asleep a lot on it. I know the story. I know the actual story too. Matter of fact, if you want to really go to where, now this isn't the same people per se, but if you really want to go like to Queen Nzinga and stuff, who's a little further south, I believe, that's actually a better story that I think they should have used. And matter of fact, what's her name? Even though she'd be wilding out, but what's Will Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, or his estranged wife, or whatever she is. The thing that she put together on it, if you haven't watched that was actually very well done. Maybe one day we'll do a watch party on that. I feel like we did something on that. I don't know if it was a watch party, but maybe someday we'll do a watch party on that. That was actually very well done. And big ups to her for that. Right. But oh, thank you for that, brother Charlie. Appreciate you. So yeah, uh, you said live flinch when I said Disney. Oh, wow, probably did. But yeah, so these are different things that you can see, right? But the white man's burden is basically just, it's his burden to make sure that the world is civilized. Now you must comprehend what these words mean: wild or savage, whether in English or le français, even in French. Savage or wild just means you don't fit into somebody's civilization. That's it. So be careful when you start saying stuff like, I'm savage, I'm a savage, I'm this, I'm that. Be careful, because all you're saying is you don't fit into civilization. But maybe you want to be savage, right? Like if you consider me to be wild, right? The Bible says in Revelation chapter 12 that Israel, she's supposed to be separating herself and getting into the wilderness again. So if you think that I'm savage because my civilization is outside of yours, then call me savage all day, right? Whichever way you want to look at it, but that's what they're saying. So the white man's burden, which is the second piece, right? So to speak, there's four pieces in the biscuit we talked about. The second piece is just necessary for us to know. So there's even like I said, there's a poem called "The White Man's Burden." I'm going to see if I can look it up. I have not read this in a while, so I don't remember how long this is. We might not have. Now when Rudyard Kipling writes this is basically, I'm getting this, by the way, off of the site. Let me look up the site, make sure I say give credit to the site. And so if you guys want, so this is actually from George Mason University's historymatters.gmu.edu, something whatever, right? But if you look up the white man's burden poem, it should be the first thing that pops up. And I'm just going to read the poem. Not too long. We won't go over every single part of it, but just something for you to be able to be recognized, to recognize where this stuff comes from, right? Because somebody thinks that we're just making this up. This is something you can read, all right, for yourself. All right, here we go. It says, take up the white man's burden. Send forth the best ye breed. Go send your sons to exile to serve your captives' need. Mm. O fluttered folk and wild, your new cult sullen peoples, half devil and half child, take up the white man's burden. In patience to abide, to veil the threat of terror, and check the show of pride by open speech and simple, and 100 times made plain, to seek another's profit and work another's gain. Take up the white man's burden and reap his old reward. The blame of those ye better, the hate of those ye guard. So probably reward to guard, whatever. They're speaking a different way than we would speak. The hate, sorry, the cry of hosts ye humor, slowly to the light. Why brought ye us from bondage? Our loved Egyptian night? Take up the white man's burden. Had done the childish days, the lightly preferred laurel, the easy ungrudged praise. Comes now to search your manhood through all the thankless years, cold edged with dear bought wisdom, the judgment of your peers. That's the white man's burden. That's a poem written by Rudyard Kipling. Many of you probably never even knew that was a poem. You just knew the white man's burden was a thing. You probably never read it. You probably never heard it. Right. Like I said, I'm not gonna go through it deep. Feel free to go through your own rabbit hole, right? Whenever you get a chance. Right. But this is Rudyard Kipling. I found it on the James Madison website for you to be able. That's what I just read from. If you want to go ahead and look at the same thing, or if you want to see, search through it, find somebody else's versions, make sure I wasn't making anything up. Right. But these are the things that are there. Now, I won't go through the whole thing, but just think about even the first 4 lines. Take up the white man's burden. So you're supposed to take this up, right? This is right. So take up the white man's burden, send forth the best ye breed. So your children, the best of your children, send them, right? Take up this burden to send your child to what? Go send your sons to exile to serve your captives' need. So send your sons to exile, right? Send your sons to exile. Go ahead, send your sons out away from you, but there's a purpose for it, to make sure that your captives, the ones that you captive, make sure that you serve their needs. Give them enough of what they need so that they can keep to serve you. Right? By the way, this poem, Kipling urged the U.S. This is written to the United States. It's not just written to anybody. This is written to the United States. Is it not? You see this? It's written to the United States. It's written, right? Published in February 1899, right? It was published in an issue of McClure's magazine, right? And the poem coincided with the beginning of the Philippine-American War. So when America was starting to take over the Philippines, right? Senate ratification of the treaty that placed Puerto Rico, Guam, Cuba, and the Philippines under American control. This is when it was written. Theodore Roosevelt, soon to become vice president, wasn't president then, but the same Theodore Roosevelt who's going to do some really wild stuff to natives and everybody around the world and have the White Fleet, the Great White Fleet that was going to sail around the world. Do y'all remember that? Theodore Roosevelt, while he soon to become vice president and then president, copied the poem and sent it to his friend, Senator Henry Cabot Lodge, commenting that it was rather poor poetry, but good sense from the expansion point of view. When everybody has an expansionist mind, this is what they're talking about. This is the white man's burden to expand, right? Not everyone was as favorably impressed as Roosevelt. The racialized notion of the white man's burden became a euphemism for imperialism, and many anti-imperialists couched their opposition in reaction to the phrase. In other words, right, when somebody used white man's burden, they were an imperialist. Any empire that's built, any imperialist. That's why even if you look on credit be given, even though he's doing some wild stuff with it, but I give credit where credit's due. When George Lucas deals with the empire in Star Wars, if you notice, they're dressed like Nazis. They're just like Nazis. They're just like Russians, even with Stalin, stuff like that. He's making a point to tell you that they are empire. The empire believes in expansion all the time, and then expanding their empire means what? That they're coming after you. It's their burden. That's who the empire represents ultimately, right? Is actually supposed to be more like the Nazis, or more like the Russians under Stalin. Right. So there's a lot of stuff that's we putting in this stuff that, once again, like we said, mythology stuff, the stuff you see how this mythology and stuff, you got to reverse the mythology. You got to recognize what's going on. Matter of fact, now if you're somebody who says, well, I agree with the dark side, and now people out here, well, Palpatine was right, just like they'll say Thanos was right. Well, Palpatine was right. Well, you don't realize what you're standing up with is the dark side, is the spirit that's behind everything, that doesn't really care about anything except making sure that they get all the money, credit, worship, and that they're always in control and everybody has to bow down to them. But they're doing so using the facade of racism. So if you think Palpatine is right, then you think that racism is right, low key. You might not recognize that's what they're putting in there, but that's the goal. That's why it's not always as simple as black and white. It's a spirit. Oh, thank you, babe. Yeah, and we got to expose them. We got to expose them, right? Alrighty. Okay. So everybody catch the white man's burden, right? The other ones, like I said, they're going to fall in line. Once we got that doctrine of discovery piece out the way, white man's burden just makes so much sense. I don't really got to go that deep, right? It is the white man's burden to send their children to do what you got to do. I know you don't want to see your babies go to war. Think about this. This is what they really this is what they really say. It's not funny. It's not funny. It's just, once you get it, it's like, how is this in my face all these years? And I just didn't catch it, right? Rudyard Kipling is saying, yo, man, send your boys to war. Don't be worried about this stuff. World War I, World War II is getting ready to come up, right? Because this is written 1899. 1899, right? That's 15 years before World War I starts. We already see where this is headed. We're already starting to take over Guam and the Philippines and all this stuff. Teddy Roosevelt is going to come over there with the Great White Fleet. He's going to make sure that he's sailing around the world and showing everybody how powerful the white man is and stuff. He even says, man, the poem is kind of trash. Like Teddy Roosevelt was even like, yo, this poem the Rudyard wrote, it's kind of trash, but it serves our purpose as well. That's what he said. Like, yeah, this poem, for real, it's kind of trash, bro. But hey, give credit where credit's due. We could use this. And sure enough, now, if you want to build an empire, you got to do so. But what? Send your boys to war. You don't even think about it. Why are you sending them to war? White man's burden. Why is there World War I? White man's burden. It becomes more clear this time. It's not even the cover of it. Why is there World War II? White man's burden. Why are we going to take all Japan's power? It's because they were doing evil things to China? No, they've been doing stuff to China and Korea. We ain't said nothing all this time. Now you got something to say now? Well, you know, it's because they're part of the Axis powers. We had to fight against them. And you see what they did to America. I mean, you were doing stuff to them the whole time. They actually reacted to what you did. Pearl Harbor was a reaction to what y'all were doing to them. And you said you weren't even in the war yet. Well, keep that stuff behind the curtain. Keep that to yourself. We're not on that right now. Just we need to attack them. They're evil. Oh, and then when we finish up, yeah, they can never have an army again. They can't do this again. They can't do that. We're gonna tell you exactly what they can and can't do for the rest of their existence. Right? The same thing that allows you to say Abraham Lincoln's so great because he freed us. What about the Seminole Wars? What about the Gullah Geechee Wars? Or the Gullah Wars? What about the fact that you were about to free yourself? What about the fact that Abraham Lincoln was often natives? He was, by the way, part what you call white, part Native American, part African. And he was knocking us off all the way from California, from sea to shining sea. Because now what comes up next is the third piece. We talked about doctrine of discovery. We talked about the white man's burden. What about the third piece, which is dealing with manifest destiny? What about the third piece that we know is manifest destiny? Manifest destiny, by the way, if we just do a quick Google search, right? If you want to see something more official than what I'm saying, this is coming from Khan Academy. Oh, wow, they teach this at Khan Academy? Okay, cool. That's for children. I didn't know that. All right, cool. Manifest destiny was the idea that white Americans were divinely ordained to settle the entire continent of North America. The ideology of manifest destiny inspired a variety of measures designed to remove or destroy the native population. So now when you got the doctrine of discovery, right? The doctrine of discovery tells the fake Christian, the pseudo Christian, right? The fake believer in the Bible, the pseudo follower of the way. Doctrine of discovery says it's all right for us to discover anything that you have and make it our own and cover it ourselves, right? Then you have the white man's burden. It's our burden to make sure that we go to war, do whatever it takes and whatever's necessary to ensure that we can continue to spread out and have an empire, right? And by the way, if you found what Rudyard Kipling, see, I don't think people even catch this. Rudyard Kipling is not an American, right? However, Rudyard Kipling is a European, and he was also somebody who's dealing with England at the time, and it's respected in England at the time, right? Now, why is that important for us to catch? If he wrote it in 1899, the United States of America, obviously, since the 1700s, is not under British rule. But at this point, it's becoming very clear that at some point, the United States of America is going to take over. And so this is a plea. When he writes this poem on the white man's burden, and also, too, has written many things on manifest destiny as well. When Rudyard Kipling wrote the poem, what he was saying is, hey, England is going to fade out. So he wrote it to the United States saying, hey, as England fades, make sure you guys keep this up. This is the same family. This is the same system. This is the same thing that gives us power, right? We've been in power because of the white man's burden. It's been our burden. Don't stop sinning. Just because you're going to be in power now is not an excuse. This is their culture. He's saying, just because you guys are going to be the next man up, it's not an excuse for you to stop becoming an empire, right? This is the mindset. So now you get that together. Now you have manifest destiny, the third piece. For God and country. There you go. That's what they'll say, right? Give me liberty or give me death means that I'd rather die than not make sure that I keep this up. So you're not even looking at it correct. You're looking at it as, oh, that was just so powerful. I'm not saying there was no bravery. I'm not saying there was no bravery. I was thinking of gravity. I didn't want to say it. I'm not saying that there's no bravery with this. What I'm saying is that just because you're brave doesn't mean that you're not evil. It was brave of the devil to say that I am better than the Most High, or at least deserve to be his equal. It's brave. It was brave to cause all of humanity to fall into sin. I mean, that's brave. It doesn't mean it's not stupid. It doesn't mean that it's not dumb, right? It's brave for somebody. That's why a lot of people don't have bravery for real, because I would give more respect to the person who'll come on here and call me out of my name and say all types of foolishness online. If they said it to my face, right, I might be upset, but I'll give you more credit than if you say it like a little coward behind. You know what I'm saying? Like if you were to say something about me or say something racist or try to say something to make me upset about my family and stuff, I mean, that's one thing behind the keyboard, but you say it to my face. I mean, you brave. It might be stupid because now I got to do something to you, but you know what I'm saying? But it's brave though. I give you, after I finish, whatever I got to do, I'll look back and I'll say, you know what, that man was brave though. Right? I'm just saying, right? So, I mean, it's brave. A lot of people brave out here. A lot of people brave to do a lot of stuff, but it doesn't mean that it's righteous. And we got to get rid of that. A lot of people out here, man, you know what? Man, I'm going to keep it real no matter what. I don't care how many people around me. I'm going to keep it gangster. I don't care if I'm the only person. I mean, it's brave, but it don't mean it's right or even righteous. It doesn't mean that it's not stupid. But it's brave, though. Right? And so we got to realize, like, the manifest destiny thing was them saying that they have a right no matter what it takes to outright off everybody. This is one of the reasons why at the end of the day the colonization works so well, right? Is because we didn't recognize ourselves as being humans. And this is what I mean. Now this right here, this is what I mean. Catch this. As far as what people mean, human race and all that stuff when they say so. We'll get into that in a little bit when we get the fifth part of this. But we didn't realize how human we were. In other words, we didn't protect humanity. We were so busy being cut off from each other and so busy being like, hey, well, you can do your own thing. And yeah, not same stuff that we do today. Well, I mean, yeah, we black people, but what does that really mean? And I don't hold your culture and this and that. Instead of keeping culture, and we kept separating, we kept allowing these people to do this stuff or whatever. And so manifest destiny, as they told you, yeah, man, shoot, there's no difference between you and anybody else. But when they came looking for you, even like today, when they come looking for you, you'll hear all this stuff. Well, French hate the English, and the English are talking trash about the Spanish, and the Spanish are talking trash about the Portuguese, and the Portuguese are talking trash about the Russians, and the Russians are talking trash about the Ukrainians and all that. But watch this. When it comes time to divide Africa up, Oh, they won, right? They won. Like, say all the stuff that you will. I'm not saying they don't fight. I'm not saying all the stuff. Promise you though, when it comes time to divide Africa, everybody together on that. They'll make treaties real quick. When it comes time to figure out how they're gonna keep messing with South America, oh, they come together real quick. When it's time to mess around with North America and the people who are there and indigenous and African and all these different belief systems that you have and everything, and while you're busy trying to tell everybody that you don't want to hold down and have one culture and hold it down and take care of each other, oh yeah, even though they know there's no such thing as white, the person that will tell you to your face, ain't no such thing as a white person. But when it comes time to do business, white business and everybody else. I'm just telling you our role. We forgot in all this stuff that we were human. I have no problem with you being your branch, your, if you want to call yourself a tribe, your city state, your country, whatever. I'm here to tell you though, at some point, like, is your humanity going to be something that's going to bring you together? Right? If you're talking about being a kingdom and a nation and all this stuff or whatever, fine. Then what is the nation that we all supposed to be under? Right? As much as I love being Ghanaian, Ghana is not created. First of all, it's not even really created by us. I know somebody will say, well, it was created. The name was given by Kwame Nkrumah and others. Yeah. But we didn't cut that up and say that's what we're going to be. Right? Somebody else cut that up, and then they said that they'll give you liberty, and then they gave you the liberty to do stuff, and then at the same time took the liberty from you. Right, and allowed you to still be a nation in disarray, and to be a fake government, a fake nation that still has to beg and plead everybody else for stuff, rather than thinking, can we grow food for ourselves? Something simple, like, can we just grow food? Why are we asking for everybody else to feed us? We have land. Why won't we just grow food? We were growing enough food to be able to feed everybody. Well, we can't make it if we can't. Our CD, our money just keeps going down. Our currency just keeps going down. So what? Spend money within yourselves. Matter of fact, why do you need to spend money? Just spend food. All right. You do stuff with cars. Okay. Somebody give you this much food, give them a car. All right. You do electricity. Okay. Somebody gives you this many cars, give them electricity. Right. You're somebody that's a teacher. Okay. Somebody teaches your children enough. You should at least make sure they feed them and they got a way to be able to get to and from, and give them some electricity, at least for the classroom. It's not that difficult. Right, to make this work, to barter, to trade correctly, but we're doing it through somebody else's prism. Through somebody else's prisms, your countenance is different. Right? Money is only something there to make sure that the stuff that actually exists. Money's not real. Money always represents something else. Money's only supposed to be used to ensure that you keep on going ahead and interchanging with others. How you doing, Kirsten? That's it. Like, if we ever got to the point where we recognize that, like, really in our whole community, we only need but so much money. Like, when we start getting this land, and then it starts getting, a few years from now, where it's homestead stuff, and then you start seeing like different parts of land popping up in different places and locations and stuff. Like, I promise you, people don't catch this. You only need but so much money. We only need enough money to make sure that if we are even going to do this, we might not even do this, depending on how we set it up. We're trying not to, but to just make sure that whatever payments we have to make, if there's any kind of tax or anything we have to do from time to time, that's all you need the money for. Everything else is land-based, right? So on the land itself, you don't have to give money. Like, for those of you who remember, just the 8 days that we did for Feast of Tabernacles last year. Oh, there got to be a place, if you were on there, right? Now, we had just enough money to make sure we got the land, right, that we use. We had enough money to make sure that we needed food and anything else, like maybe plates and stuff. Other than that, everything else was off the land, right? You made fire to cook the food. You had food, right? Even had a little RV and stuff that was there, right? You had cars if you needed to take people to and from in places that might have been too far to go. We didn't really do it for food, but you can go fishing. You had stuff to play. The children had stuff for them. The adults had stuff for them. There was water if you wanted to do some stuff. There was activities going on. You could just sit down and chill out. You had a place to be able to lay your head down and go in from out of the elements. You had a place to be able to take a shower. So once you got on the land and stuff for the time, you didn't not one time were you really worried about money. Yeah, look at the Amish if you want to, right? Right. This is, but what I'm saying is you don't have to, like, once that happens, you don't even worry about it. The only thing that you need money for is when you're dealing with the outside system, and you're bartering with somebody off the land. I know that wasn't our land, right? I know that was where we were located. How you doing, Sister Sage? But I'm just saying, that's the mindset is all we needed money for was, securing the land if we need to get something from somebody else. Outside of that, everything that was in our camp was taken care of, right? Everything in our camp is taken care of. That's the goal. That should be the goal is everything in your nation, can you take care of it? You have everything on the land. Why you keep looking for the outside stuff? The only reason your money makes sense. So if you're saying there's things you absolutely have to have, then that means you have to make sure you have more of it within yourselves so that you look less and less. And then watch this. Other people that want what you have, they got to do the same thing the other way. So I don't think people even get this, but let's say, so somebody will say, well, as far as the CD, this is Ghana, right? Ghanaian currency. They'll say, well, the CD is really low, right? So since it's, the American dollar is 4.5 times what the CD is. So if somebody wants something from us, they don't have to spend that much to get it. Why not? Especially if we have something that you cannot get anywhere on the planet except through us, or we're the only people that you can get it from at the time. Why is it less expensive? Well, they're saying because Ghanaian money, since it comes out of Ghana, it's like, no, that's not how that works, baby. Right? If I'm the person that has it, then it means you got to come and see me, and I get to tell you this is how much it costs. See, we done lost our mind. We done lost our way, where we think that we are on the bottom of this thing. If we have something and we are the arbitrators of it, we are the keepers of it, then we keep it holy, we keep it pure, we tell you what the price of it is. Not according even to ourselves, but according to the Most High, right? So you're sitting up there talking about, oh, well, America doesn't value it, and so they're trying to get it 4 times less than what it is, then they just won't get it. But if they don't give it to us, then we might not get this and that or whatever. Do we have those same things in the ground? Well, yes, but we have to put in work. Yeah, put in work then. Get it out your own ground. Stop having a contract with China. You can do it yourself. I still haven't done. There's something on there I watched a while ago where I'm gonna try and figure out. But this person was showing how you can basically have electricity off of something like this big for your whole house. At some point, I ain't even worried about getting off grid, just in my own house. And they'd be like, "Well, that's illegal. You got to come to." No, it's not. I can just literally attach it to the house. I can just have every room if I want. I can just make a whole separate group of wiring and put it in my house, and just have everything coming off a little small thing. Why am I paying for that when I can just live by it? Right? We got the wrong mindset, right? Who shall believe our report? Why are you trying? Well, I'll give them the report, but I'll change the word so I can make sure that those who are trying to keep it the white man's burden and manifest destiny, that people who are doing the doctrine of discovery and don't like me in the first. No, man, stop. You have the value. Okay. Fourth one. So first one, doctrine discovery. Second one, we almost finished. First one, doctrine discovery. Second one is white man's burden. Third one is manifest destiny. Fourth one is the lost cause. Now this one is one that is very subtle, even for a lot of so-called Americans, but it's something that affects you around the world. The lost cause rhetoric is like this: hey, when everything happened with the fight between the North and the South in the United States of America, it was never really fought about slavery. It was fought about states' rights. And then, right, but it also often comes with something called the South shall rise again. You're going to see a Confederate flag coming, right? Or what many of you should know is actually a Confederate Jack. That whole X, and what is it, red or orange or whatever it is. I don't even care enough for it to be keeping up with it. But that whole X thing that y'all hate that comes out at certain times, that comes out of the lost cause. The lost cause, once again, is saying that, remember, the South left the North in the United States corporation, or what at that time would have been the United States of America, right? And so if you're dealing within the lost cause, says that no, we didn't fight to make sure, we didn't fight for slavery, we fought for states' rights. But states' rights to what? States' rights to what? Right? These things are still, these lack of not knowing these myths, they still are affecting us today. Because guess what? As much as people say, well, that doesn't matter. Why you keep bringing up the past? Why you keep bringing up chattel slavery? Why you keep bringing up this and that or whatever? But every time that I see a Confederate flag pop out, that's the lost cause. Well, you don't understand. My family fought. And here's the wild part. Somebody do me a favor. We've done this before a few times. If you don't mind, allow me to do this one more time. Somebody do me a favor if you're able to. I need somebody, if you're able to, if somebody can on Facebook, if somebody can on YouTube, if somebody can on TikTok. If not, just whichever place you can do it. But if somebody can do this for me, look up real quick. If you got a calculator, if you want to do it on your phone, if you want to do it on your device, whatever it is, I want you to do a math equation for me real quick. So the United States of America is how old? Let's see. Should we use 1776? I know it's more fair to say 87, 89, 91, somewhere in there. But let's just do 76 because that's what they tell us we should celebrate, right? They tell you celebrate 1776 every year. Okay, so let's do 76. So then that gives us 1886, 1996, that's 200. And then we got to go 2006, 16, that's 20. And then we're in 24. So let's say 8 more, so 28. So United States of America, 228 years. So this is what I need you to do on your calculator. Give me 4, right? Some of you will say 5. It's really more like 4. 5 is when some of them started to leave the Union, but you didn't have a Confederacy yet. But fine, maybe you can give me 5, right? 5 is too much, but hey, let's be fair. Let's give them one more year. Give me 5 divided by 228, if you don't mind. 5, it should be 4, but let's just be what they might consider to be fair in his story, right? How you doing, Sister Barbara? Somebody give me 5 divided by 228 and tell me what that is. No, not 228 divided by 5. I need 5 divided by 228. 5 divided, 5 fraction, 5 over 228. 5 divided by 228. All right, thank you. So we get 0.0219. We round that to 0.02. Or if we want to keep it at 0.0219, let's go ahead and do that. How about this? So that's 2.19%. And that's us being nice, right? Remember, because it's really 4. So it should be less than 1%, but let's just be nice. So you're telling me that 2.19% of human existence, where supposedly half the country wanted to go ahead and break free and fight against the North, but you still carry flags for 2.19% of the United States of America's history. Human history, it's even smaller, right? But 2.19% out of 228 years, 2.19%. Right? But they'll tell you that they need to bring their Confederate flags out because of what that meant. Half the country, and even including some of the Confederates that were fighting, but half the country didn't even agree with your fight. And 2.19% of the United States of America history. Meanwhile, though, right, they'll tell you and I, forget about chattel slavery. How long has chattel slavery existed? In 228 years of American history, what they call American history. And it allowed us in the room. Come on, right? How long has chattel slavery existed? Thank you, babe. Exactly. If the United States of America is 228 years old, then chattel slavery has existed for 228 years. Because according to the 13th Amendment, chattel slavery still exists. You just can't say only because you're black, you got to arrest them first. So chattel slavery still exists. So 100%, that means under the United States flag. That means under the one with 13 stars. That means under the one with 48 stars. Right? That means that whichever version of it you want to talk about, for all 228 years, 100% of that. Right? So if anything, if you fought for slavery and your people fought for slavery, you should go ahead and give that one up. You actually betrayed the cause because your people were about slavery from the beginning. See, but this is pseudo Christianity. There's a pseudo stuff. There's pseudo stuff. The mind of all this stuff is Christian, and the mind that all this stuff is biblical, and it's all based off of truth, and it's all based off of us being one and being, you know. The truth of the matter is that you've actually betrayed your country again, because your country is about chattel slavery today as much as it was back then. Put down that Confederacy. You actually betraying the cause. You just wanted to have chattel slavery where a couple of the rich folk could have chattel slaves, and they tricked y'all into fighting for it. And it's 11:11, babe. Love you. If you didn't see it yet, right? So this is, well, love you, period. But it's 11:11 if you didn't see it yet. Excuse me. So 228 years, the United States of America has been in chattel slavery, right? For 4 years technically, but we'll give you 5. That's 2.19% of the history of the United States of America. Have you dealt with chattel slavery in the Confederacy? All right, have a great day, Shannon. Thanks for being on. Right, 2.19% versus 100%. You're a traitor again. Right? You betrayed the goal again. If the goal is to make sure you talk about, but then they'll say, no, see, they fought for slaves' rights. All right, let's look something up real quick, because I could just go off the dome, but sometimes I mess it up. So let's see. What did countries who seceded or succeeded, really, or well seceded from the Union say? Right. So I'm going to something called American Battlefield Trust. This is from battlefields.org. All right. Called the Declaration of Causes of Seceding States. This is the Declaration of Causes of Seceding States. Okay. And this only has a few of them. Obviously, there's more, but this, we're just going to deal with Georgia. I don't even know if we'll deal with all of them, but we'll deal with Georgia, Mississippi, South Carolina, Texas, and Virginia. All right, I won't read all of it. I'll just try to find the parts to show you what the continuation or the thematic the thematic glue, if you will, of each one of these. Okay, all right. So watch this. So for Georgia, this is Georgia's. The people of Georgia, having dissolved their political connection with the government of the United States of America, present to their Confederates and the world, the causes which have led to the separation. For the last 10 years, we have had numerous and serious causes of complaint against our non-slave holding Confederate states with reference to the subject of African slavery. May I say it again? I'm going to read that again, because no, Georgia didn't secede from the Union because of slavery. They seceded from the Union because of what? Because of states' rights. Yeah, states' rights that you wanted to own slaves. I'm gonna just read the beginning again. You ready? It says the people of Georgia. The people of who? What country? What state that's seceding? Georgia. All right, for the Georgia folk, don't let somebody lie to you. All right, you ready? All right. The people of Georgia, having dissolved their political connection with the government of the United States of America, present to their Confederates and the world, right, the causes which have led to the separation. For the last 10 years, we have had numerous and serious causes of complaint against our non-slave holding Confederate states with reference to the subject of African slavery. Now watch this. Watch this. Now you right. So watch this. Real talk. Right. How you doing, Rick? Hopefully all is well. So watch this. They have endeavored to weaken our security, to disturb our domestic peace and tranquility, and persistently refuse to comply with their express constitutional. That means slavery is constitutional. They say that when George Washington and them, when they put together the Constitution, they said that we should continue to do what George Washington, first president, and Monroe, second president, who was under a Virginia person as well. That's going to sound familiar. Thomas Jefferson, also from Virginia. Madison, also from Virginia. Monroe, also from Virginia. All Virginia slave owners. They said what? Watch this. They said, and persistently refuse to comply with their express constitutional obligations to us in reference to that property. Who is the property? This is just what Georgia said. I'm just reading you what Georgia said. They said this is why they left. Amen, Sister Keita. This is why they said it. This is why they said it, right? They said what? They said, look, they got away from the non-slave holding states are trying to mess with us concerning the subject of African slavery. They have endeavored to weaken our security, because if you get rid of African slavery, we're not as secure. to disturb our domestic peace and tranquility. Because if you take away slavery, then our domestic peace and tranquility is based off of that. They're at ease with your scorning. What else? And persistently refuse to comply with their express constitutional obligations to us in reference to that property. You are the property. And by use of their power in the federal government, have striven to deprive us of an equal enjoyment of the common territories of the republic. So when we go into other territories, we want to make slaves there too. They're making us fight for it. This hostile policy of our Confederates has been pursued with every circumstance of aggravation which could arouse the passions and excite the hatred of our people. They starting to get white people to not even like this, and our good white folk, they're getting tired of this. And has placed the two sections of the Union for many years past in the condition of virtual civil war. They caused this when they didn't want us to bow down to slavery, or they didn't want to bow down to slavery. Our people, still attached to the Union from habit and national traditions and averse to change, hope that time, reason, and argument would bring, if not redress, at least exemption from further insults, injuries, and dangers. Recent events have fully dissipated all such hopes and demonstrated the necessity of separation. They left because they couldn't have slaves no more. That's it. Don't let them fool you. We can keep on going, right? By the way, maybe one of these days we can do a whole thing or a whole series just on Patreon, right? And we'll go through this stuff or whatever, right? But this is like literally, this is when I watch this. Here's the next one, Mississippi, right? Mississippi, a declaration of the immediate causes which induce and justify the secession of the state of Mississippi from the federal union. All right, watch this. In the momentous step which our state has taken of dissolving its connection with the government of which we so long formed a part, it is but just that we should declare the prominent reasons which have induced our course. So these are the prominent reasons, the main reasons. Our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery. Boom. I don't even got to work that hard, right? They literally said, we're going to start off by telling you, Mississippi said, we're going to start off by telling you why we're seceding. And we're going to tell you straight up from the beginning what's the most prominent things that are causing us. First sentence of the next paragraph, our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery. The greatest material interest of the world. They told the truth. They said this ain't even an American thing. They're messing us up. This is a worldwide institution that they're trying to mess up over here. Georgia said, we're bringing this complaint before the Union and the world. Mississippi said, shoot, the world should know this because the world makes just as much money off of this than everybody else does. This is the main making money thing worldwide is slavery. Still is prison. Still is these babies that are being sold into, to be SA'd all the time. Still is with a lot of these people that are doing, pornography and stuff. And if you look carefully, they themselves are slaves. Still is where you see the gladiatorial games and all these people who are slaves. All right. Still is. Right? What did he say? What did he say again? Mississippi said, our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery. The greatest material interest of the world is labor supplies, the product which constitutes by far the largest and most important portions of commerce of the earth. These products, these what? What are you? What are you? See, just like today, you're a product of your environment. You're a product of the slavery that's still going on. What did they call you? They said these products are peculiar. Aren't you a peculiar people? I'm just trying to show you the spirit of this stuff. And when you start reading, there's too much where this can't be accidental, right? It says these products are peculiar. Watch this, to the climate verging on the tropical regions. These products can do things in places that we can't because we can't be in the sun like that. It's a very well written way of just saying, look, man, we can't be in the sun like that. We did the Irish thing, we did the Slavic thing, but look, they make money and we can use them around the world because they can do things in places that we can't. Sure, anybody can just cover somebody up and say stay warm, but can't nobody just be in the sun like that all day and be strong enough to where they don't even have to eat food that comes from their places and stuff like that, but still survive long enough to be able to give their last breath to us. Just what they're saying. These products are peculiar to climate verging on the tropical regions and by an imperious, what did we just say imperious empire is dealing with? The white man's burden? All right, manifest destiny, white man's burden. See, look at the language, right? Primary and by an imperious law of nature, none but the black race. May I say it again? This is what they wrote. That's not what I wrote. They said none but the black race can bear exposure to the tropical sun. So wait a minute. So are we weaker or are we not? Are we weaker or are we stronger? I don't believe that we're stronger or better just because we're black. But you kept saying that we were on one side. You're saying that we are the weakest and we're terrible. This and that. The other side, you're saying we're stronger. It says, none but the black race can bear exposure to the tropical sun. These products, once again, you're a product. These products have become necessities of the world. It's necessity of the world that you be their product. These products have become necessities of the world, and a blow at slavery is a blow at commerce and civilization. Remember, if you are not in their civilization, you're considered to be wild. I'm just trying to show you. People be thinking we're making this stuff up. Right? These products have become necessities of the world, and a blow at slavery is a blow at commerce and civilization. There was no choice left us but submission to the mandates of abolition or a dissolution of the union. See, so you keep thinking that abolition was only the abolitionists trying to get rid of slavery. They said we are abolitionists. We're trying to make sure that we leave the union because we can't leave our civilization behind. Meanwhile, they just didn't comprehend that, look, capitalism allows for chattel slavery too. We just don't call it slavery. It's still the number one thing. We just don't call it slavery. They fought over a misunderstanding. Right? That blow has been long aimed at the institution and was at the point of reaching its consummation. There was no choice left us but submission to the mandates of abolition or a dissolution of the union, whose principles had been subverted to work out our ruin. That we do not overstate the dangers of our institution, a reference to a few acts will sufficiently prove. They're even going to go a little deeper. They're going to say, here's some acts that really got us to realize what was happening. The hostility to this institution commenced before the adoption of the Constitution. So they said the Constitution is supposed to be adopted. We're supposed to be using the Constitution, and they were already trying to fight against slavery, and the slavery is supposed to be constitutional. Here's it. The hostility of this institution commenced before adoption of the Constitution and was manifested in the well-known ordinance of 1787 in regard to the Northwestern Territory. So in the Northwestern Territory, where we are already, you keep thinking that's when they went later on. No, already they were in the Northwestern Territory. They were already dealing with stuff. Oregon, sundown town, some of the most racist stuff, Portland, Salem, Oregon, stuff like that. They said we were already doing slavery and we were already dealing with this stuff and we were already enslaving natives and Africans that we had purchased and stuff. We were already bringing them over there. And if natives and Africans tried to live free over there, we were already waxing them and wiping them out. We already dealt with this before it was even constitutional or before it even became constitutional. They were trying to fight against it. That's their belief system, is that slavery is constitutional. Next one, he says, the feeling increased until in 1819 through 20, it deprived the South of more than half the vast territory acquired from France. Hey, they said when we got the territory from France, the French people, they were slave owners, right? Thomas Jefferson, he's a slave owner. Monroe, he a slave owner. Madison, slave owner. They worked together, got the stuff together. We purchased the territory. Everybody up in there. Doctrine of discovery, manifest destiny, white man's burden. We should have been winning that piece and taking everybody as a slave. We already owned slaves over there. We already owned indigenous. We already were enslaving and bringing people from other Caribbean places, coming through Africa or coming by way of Africa through these places and all this stuff, whatever. We had all these people already. And then the North went in and said, well, we don't want that to be a slave-owning state. We want it to be a capitalism state. They said, well, we bought it from slave owners. Why are they messing with this thing? This is constitutional. They're messing with our constitutional rights. This is what they said. We can keep on going and going with that. We'll have to do this one day, a series. Maybe it'll just be on Patreon only, right? That can be a Patreon University thing to go with some of our Black history stuff, right? And then maybe we'll do one of them where it's we'll do one where everybody can see it too, right? But this. I mean, I can keep on going. This one's only going to be five of the states. There's more states that seceded than them, but these five states in particular. This is Georgia. Was it Georgia, Mississippi, Texas, South Carolina, and Virginia? Just off this one site, right? And here's the myth. You got to reverse the myth. The myth is what? The lost cause. The lost cause that was made by the daughters that's brought up by the daughters of the Confederacy, who were the granddaughters or the wives or the nieces, whatever, of these great great Confederate, so in their mind, great Confederate soldiers who gave their lives to the cause, or lost their lives, or lost, and now they look bad, or lost limbs and stuff, or they live in a bad way, or they got these diseases they live with now, right? And or people who had a lot of money and now they're poor, or they have money, they're considered to be poor just because they don't have as much money as they had before because they lost a lot of their property or their slaves. So the South shall rise again. These daughters started lying and saying stuff, and they started even building statues, right, of these people after the war. And by the way, if you want to look at this stuff, there's also stuff called like sons of the Confederacy and stuff, or even granddaughters of the Confederacy or stuff. It's coming from the same thing. These people are still alive today trying to tell you that, oh, no, we never fought a war off of slavery. We bought off of slave rights. Now, why is it important that I bring this up? Lost cause, even if you're not in the United States of America, it is important that I bring it up because a lot of you don't realize and recognize that they're telling you the same story, telling you doesn't matter, telling you it's about states' rights, telling you slavery doesn't matter that much anymore, telling you, hey, don't worry about these things that are constitutional. And you who look up to the United States of America for your guidance, you don't even realize and recognize that when they're speaking on these things, that they're lying to you. They're lying and saying it was never about slavery, or it's not as big a deal as it was, or this stuff still doesn't exist, or the law. Here they're telling you straight up, we fought this because we believe that slavery was constitutional, and we feel like they're trying to say that slavery is not anymore. This is a right versus left thing. This is the right has a lot of people who are in it, and by the way, the left and the right, if we want to be honest, it does it. But this is what they're trying. This is really, if we could just break it down to simple doctrine, simple whatever, right? Make it simplistic, make it kingdom sense and not common sense, where you're all over the place. There's a group of people in the South, right? The 1% of 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 the 1%, just like today, are the only people that can even afford to have a whole rack of slaves, right? Some of the people who are higher up than middle class, but they're not quite middle class, they can afford a few slaves. The middle class, if you're really doing something, maybe you can get one slave or something, and you don't even really treat them like the slaves that you think because you only got one. And they kind of end up being like family to you, and you kind of end up letting them even be like family and stuff. So it's even a different dynamic than what we even think chattel. It's still chattel slavery, but let's be honest, that's not even the same thing. But most people are not even. Here's the thing: when they say middle class is an average. It's a mean. It's an average, but it's not an average of what everybody has. It's an average of what the top person makes down to the bottom person. You hear what I'm saying? So if you're watch this. Most people who are considered to be poor, you can have a two-person household. Most families in America, right? We even with two families working, make it the most $40,000 a year or less. The heavy majority of people are under the poverty line. I know you're not taught that, but that's real. The majority of you, the majority of people, right? I won't even say of you. The majority of people, believe it or not, make less than $40,000 a year, husband and wife combined. Right. So when we start talking about abject poverty, so y'all be thinking that abject poverty is something else. You don't be thinking America has third world problems, right? When we get to Detroit, we talked about this before. Detroit, the average family makes, black family, let me correct that, the average family of a certain diaspora, of a certain persuasion, we in Detroit will make about 6,000. I say we because I consider them to be my family. I'm not in Detroit. Those families are making $6,000 or less a year. Right? No wonder in the D, cats is robbing. No wonder in the D, cats is sitting up there like everything's boarded up. No wonder cats is out here just having sex wherever, blah, blah, people trying to make it wherever. Like, no wonder, because no wonder it's so easy to come in there. Right? You think in your mind, you go middle class is the average. No, middle class is the average. If we go up, matter of fact, put it like this. See, it's a lot more that goes into it. I apologize. Let me rein it in some, because that'll sound it is incorrect the way I'm saying it. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Put it like this. You got to ask yourself how they can even pretend to tell you and I that the average salary for a family is 50,000 or so, 40,000, 50,000. That the average family, right? That's what the average family is making. How can they tell you that when the richest, like if we were to be honest, if we would just go by averages, if there's a billionaire in the United States of America. 1 billionaire. Let's just say he makes $1 billion a year. That's it. There's people that make way more than that, right? But let's just say he only has come in $1 billion a year. Do you know how many people have to make way less than $40,000 a year to even get us down from 1 billionaire in America? Did you catch that? Aren't there like 40 billionaires, 50 billionaires? I don't know what it is now, right? Inflation makes it to where there's always more than it used to be. But just think about it. If there's only 1 billionaire in the whole of the United States corporation, how many people does it take to live in abject poverty before you can kind of sort of get to 40,000? We're not even including, there's people that make 6 figures a year. 6 figures a year, you don't even think about it. If 40,000 is what it sometimes takes too, some of y'all be out here telling people, I heard this the other day, the man shouldn't really be dating unless he, especially if he's making 50,000. And I don't believe in dating, but this was the mindset of it. A man shouldn't go on dates if he only makes $50,000 a year because he's too poor to actually take somebody on the proper dating, because dating takes money. And I was just sitting there thinking to myself, I don't think this woman obviously something's off with her thinking, because like she was like, if you have 100,000, she was like, the other girl, her girlfriend or whatever, the person who was interviewing her was like, and of course they in ATL. We always got some weird mindset going on ATL nowadays, but they were sitting up there talking, and the girl who asked her the question that got her to give this answer was first saying stuff like, well, let's say a guy only makes 100,000. And our first response was, only? Right? Like, only 100,000 a year? Only 100K? Like, I don't think they realize that person is making twice as much as the average family. So that shows a mindset, right? Yeah, the math ain't math, right? So, but think about that. If you are a billionaire, just 1 billionaire, there's supposed to be tens of them now, right? I don't know if it's 40, I don't know if it's 50, 60. Who knows? Maybe you gotten up to 100. Like I said, inflation be causing stuff to be different. So you always got to think about this stuff anyways, because just because there were no billionaires at the time of John Rockefeller, or if he became the first one or whatever, it doesn't mean that billionaire status wasn't applied to them, right? Like, you adjust this stuff for inflation. But nevertheless, let's say there's just 1 billionaire only. How many people does it take to average way less than 40,000 before you finally can say, all right, billionaire? Now put in there, how many people are making 6 figures? How many people be making 250? How many millionaires are there in the United States of America, right? That means then we got to multiply it. How much more? They're supposedly, I don't be believing these numbers because I don't think they know what they're talking about. Or I think they hold some of this stuff to make you guys scared about certain things, this, that, whatever. So they'll say, what is it, 320 million? It's been 320 million for like 3 decades now, it feels like. But let's say it's 320 million Americans. So out of 320 million Americans, there's 1 billionaire. How many of them, if there was only 1 billionaire, how many of them got to be way below the poverty line? By the way, if you're homeless and stuff and you don't even do a census, do they even count you? If you're a child out there living a feral existence, this happens, by the way. I was just researching a woman today, earlier, that got into crime and stuff later in her life and everything. And if you look at her life, she ended up basically being kicked out of her house at a certain point, especially when her mother passed away. Her father, who was already abusive and probably SA'd her and stuff like that, and stuff like that was going on in her house, and she got kicked out. She grew up in the woods from like being a preteen or a teenager, and grew up the rest of her life, right? She ain't counted. They ain't counting her. Trying to live off the land, literally live off the land, trying to figure out how to eat leaves and stuff, starting to give favors and stuff to guys so she can get cigarettes to smoke. They ain't counting her. This is why a lot of times when you see stuff and you see guys that start doing some wild stuff and they start being abusive to women of the night and things of that nature, and they don't, and nothing happens to them, because don't nobody count them. It's just like, oh, they deserve that, or it's only a matter of time, or they must have made a decision in their life to just nobody forced them in that, they made a choice. That's how they do people today. They don't care about that. So think about that. How many did it take? How many does it take to be in abject poverty to get us to where 40,000 with 2 families working is something that is a normalcy, right? It's more the norm to think you are poor and not realize that really you are rich. How do you come out of poverty, though, if you don't believe that it's foolish for everybody to be working for 1 billionaire? Now we know there's more than one, but just think about this. If there's just one millionaire, everybody will work themselves literally to death. Forgive me for using that strong language, but will work themselves to that standard, under that standard, so that they can make sure that that one person throws them fractions and pennies. And that one person, because they make so much money, they get tax breaks that you wouldn't get. So here you are talking about this, that, the third, whatever. They get tax breaks and all this stuff that you wouldn't even get. Matter of fact, they have a lot of what's called passive income. You don't even think about passive income, right? Passive income, because they make money, because you work for them, they get a tax break. They only have to get taxed for certain things because they're passive. In other words, you do the work, and the reward for them is, since they're passive, since they sit back and watch you, they get a tax break. And while you work your behind off, you pay more taxes. Right? This is the myth. We got to reverse the myths. And you could just have, if the whole country one day just stood up, if 50%, if 20%, this is how wild it is. If 20% of the country today said, we out. And if they said, well, we're going to kick you guys out of your house and then that'll kick us out. You're going to stop 20% of the nation from getting food if we really want it? I'm not even talking about righteousness. We should do it righteously. But what if everybody just said, look, 20% of the country came together and said, you're going to stop us from all living in one state? What if 20% of the country said, you're going to stop us from growing food? What if 20% of the country said, you're going to stop us from freeing people in prison that we think need to be freed? The military can't stop that. Now, let me stop, because they'll say that I'm inciting violence or something, right? It's for educational purposes only, for righteousness purposes only, right? I'm just telling you, it's that simple, right? But we don't have to. We don't think about these things. All right. So the four, and then let's do the biscuit, and we out. Right? We did the 4-piece. Let's do the biscuit. So the 4-piece, once again: doctrine of discovery, white man's burden, manifest destiny, lost cause, and the 5th one is Darwinism, or what many of you call evolution. It is the 5th out of 6 types of evolution, but Darwinism, or evolution, if you just want to call it that. Once again, I'm making the distinction because there's 6 types of evolution. So you can't just call Darwinism evolution, because although all Darwinism is evolution, not all evolution fits into Darwinism. All right. Somebody says evolution. I don't like that one. I don't like that one. Those of you who are part of SOC, y'all already know where we're going. Right. I could show you, right, better than I can tell you. Right. I'll just look up the title of the book, and you can go ahead and do with it what you will, right? Because some of you are already frustrated just by hearing that. Why are you trying to bring evolution into us and this and that or whatever? Because you've been taught that evolution was just something that's random, or evolution is something that brings people together, that evolution is real, right? And although this is not the conversation today, we will talk about evolution probably tomorrow, in all honesty. We will talk about evolution heavily, right? However, let's just do this real quick. I'm having a problem finding it, of course, now that I want it. There we go. I'm just going to read a title for you real quick. Is that all right? And then I'll leave it as a Salah moment. So here's the title of Charles Darwin's book, written in 1859. By the way, this is the same time area as what? Lost Cause, right? The Lost Cause is going to be, the Civil War is going to end 1865. Right? White Man's Burden. White Man's Burden pretty much started already. Going to be a poem written 1899. Right? U.S. continue to keep the white man's burden up. Right? Manifest Destiny. Hey, take over North America. That's heavily going on right now. Right? And now, when is this biscuit? When is this 5th of the 4 of the 5 things that we're talking about? This Darwinism or evolution. This book is written 1859. People still saying, oh no, this stuff doesn't exist. It doesn't affect anything. You still arguing about evolution now to this day, arguing forward and stuff, and don't even realize what it is. Here's the full title of the book, right? It's called The Origin of Species, right? So it's supposed to be about what? The origin of species, where everything comes from, right? Its origin, by means of natural selection. Natural selection, right? How nature, supposedly natural laws say that people are selected, or things are selected, or persons are selected, or animals are selected. But what does it really mean? Natural selection, you could put semicolon there, or the, right? Or the, in other words, natural selection really means what? If we're talking about what we believe in our belief system as Europa, when we're doing manifest destiny, when we're talking about lost cause, this is what we believe that natural selection is. Natural selection, or the preservation of favored races and the struggle for life. The preservation of what? What they say? What's that say right there? Because somebody think I'm lying. What does that say right there? It's the preservation of what? Mm. Not just of races, of the favored races. Now, what are we talking about? Evolution. So if it's evolution, that means that natural selection, right? Survival of the fittest and all that. You think that that's something that's just saying, oh, because have need this and that. No, favored races. Now, what you don't know is there's a part of this title, right? Right, or underneath the title, after it tells you that it's by Charles Darwin, which became M.A. He was just had that bestowed upon him, but real talk, the only thing he went to school for was he got a baccalaureate or a bachelor's, if you will, which was paid for after he was sent by his family to school to become a priest, to become a pastor, or to become a priest, to become a preacher like his father. Right, his father, who was very racist, his uncle, who was very racist, his uncle, who actually was a non-believer, not just in Christianity, but in any kind of higher power. He was an atheist, strongly such, and actually hated himself so much that his weight actually had a problem with it. His uncle was so big that they had to cut out a portion of the table so that his uncle could actually sit up to the table and eat with them when it was time to eat. Right, his had a lot of issues he came up with. He married his own cousin. Matter of fact, his cousin, who was also his brother-in-law, would be the one to write the book on eugenics because he liked what his big cousin, his big brother, had to say. Right? Yeah, for a spontaneous process, the entropy of the universe increases. Yeah. So think about this. Um, so it says on here, you'll see it says fellow of the royal. That means royalty, right? Geological, that means geology. Geologists were using this now. Now we can use this for the geology, doctrine of discovery, why we should do this, how we can mistreat this, why we can do. See, geological, and Linnaean, Carl Linnaeus. Then it says etc., etc. Well, actually, no, sorry. I'm doing a weird thing there. ETC is actually another society. Sorry about that. I was about to go somewhere I shouldn't. Thank you, Holy Spirit. And societies, all these societies, right? All these societies. So who is Linnaeus? Who is Linnaean? Linnaean doctrine? Who is Carl Linnaeus? Carl Linnaeus is somebody who believed that everybody came from races. Matter of fact, he's the first one to write out that there are different types of human races. You guys think there's one human race. There never was a such thing. Because race is interchangeable with the word species. You've only gotten there because you believed all these other things and they're part of your story. So when you say there's a human race, there was never a human race. Because we don't believe that a species is a race. And we don't even believe that we're a species per se. Humanity is humanity. And all of us come from Adam. Any other human being that's part of us was married in through Noah's wife, through Noah's daughter-in-laws. Anything that you want to call species of humanity. But after that, Noah, he's our seminal head. Adam was our seminal head. The flood head. Noah is our seminal head. After that, everything comes out of Noah. What are you talking about? Species. That's not part of your belief system. You see that? So where did this come from? The species or these races, where when it says races, race was because they believed that different species of animals were different races. Why? Because they had competition. If I were to say to my son, even though my son recognized there's such thing as racism, but if I were to say to my son, hey, you know what? We're going to go and we're going to deal with race. He's going to say, oh, okay. When we going to start? He's going to think somebody's going to say, on your marks, get set, go. That because he knows that's competition. He knows we lined up. Let's go. Right? Like that's what he considers a race to be. How you doing, James? But for us, what do we consider? You consider race to be what? To be white or black or this and that. But see, that's competition. They believed that there were species that raced against each other. Matter of fact, right? So they competed against each other. Then he said, so Linnaeus said there's species that compete against each other. He put them into groups of four. He said there's the white race, the red race, the yellow race, the black race. So the only reason, and we'll get into evolution tomorrow, praise God. So the only reason why you even think about evolution or think about these things or even argue for some of these things is because of what? Is because somebody told you that these things actually are real when they have no reality. It's fiction. It's fictional. It's somebody's belief system that somebody made up. If you were to read the book, many of you have never read the book. If you were to read the book by Charles Darwin, you would discover that he has a whole pages and stuff totally dedicated to making sure that we comprehend that there's certain people who are better than others. And then here comes his cousin later on, right? And gives you something called eugenics that goes along with what his big brother cousin said, right? And by the way, we keep talking about this incest theme and this mythology because have you not noticed that people who are into incest keep coming up with these ideas? And these people that are into incest are also the royalty. And when you got these people that are over a group of people and then start colonizing you with their belief systems and now things are gentrified, they start looking very incestual. You start getting into a lot of things. That's why you have kids instead of children because you're into goats and little boy stuff, right? That's why you have platonic relationships because you're into little boy stuff, right? You have a lot of things that are there that don't make sense. That's why you talk about Freudian slips and somebody being anal retentive about something because Freud himself was somebody. Here's another myth that y'all thought was science, and a lot of people who still teach have to go to class and learn Freudian stuff. When Freud himself was a failure in his life, was considered to be a failure, crazy, somebody who was and no shade, just he was LGBTQ plus, and he was somebody who was also a PED, you know what? And he was somebody who taught, who said, right, his theory was, he said, psychologically speaking, the reason why your children act the way that they do is because they themselves are what? He said the reason they do that is because the reason they're anal, the reason they act that way when they're little is because they want to be able to have relations. He says they can't have relationships with their father. Their father's not interested. So since their father's not interested, they get upset, but they're always around their mom. And they want around their mom, they want somebody to do something to them. Their mom can't do anything to them because she doesn't have a phallus. And since she can't do anything to them, they're just really frustrated. So what we would call the terrible twos today, they just said they were anal. What you saying? You say anyone who subscribed to race is going to be sorry when they get to the finish line. Ooh, that's a bar, sir. Right. So I'm just saying, there's a lot of stuff we got to reverse the myths. Right. So going back to our focal scripture, I'll just go ahead and kind of recite them best as I can. Going back to our focal scriptures for today, and then we'll take our leave. Thank you, everybody, for being on. We appreciate you. If you're on TikTok, you want to stick around a little longer for the shout out. If you've never done it with us before, we think you'll enjoy it. Just give us a second to do that. Everybody else, thank you for being on. We'll go ahead and dismiss. Prayerfully, I'll see you this evening. Patreon family, hope we'll have something for you later today. And don't forget, tomorrow we are early Shabbat to you who use the Israelite calendar. Shabbat later this evening. We're doing our intermittent fasting, all that. But as we get ready to take our leave, I'll just try to go back to our focal scriptures and we'll take our leave. Once again, we started with John chapter 14 and verse 15, right? John 14:15, which says as follows. It says, if you love me, keep my commandments. Uh-oh. Oh no. We lost TikTok. That's my fault, team. Well, hopefully we'll get him back. Oh no, that's my fault. John 14:15. I wasn't thinking. Nah. That's weird though. It didn't give me any warning or anything. Sorry, y'all. We gotta get him back on track for something I'm trying to read. Oh no. What's going on? Hold on. Something's not making sense. Okay. About to say. What happened for real now? Like everything going out. Okay. We got everybody else on. Cool. All right. My bad. Let me get them back on real quick. I didn't realize it till it was too late. Okay. All right. Here we go. Praise y'all. Thank you, Father. I apologize. Let me get them back on. I think, what's going on? What is... Okay. Here we go. Oh, all right. My bad. I don't know if we still got y'all on or not. Are they coming on? Now it's telling me I don't have any signal. Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm sorry, y'all. That's my fault. If you can hear me on TikTok, that's my bad. It was supposed to give me a warning before it kicked y'all out, but it went ahead and get y'all. But anyways, we'll go back. We'll end with our focal verses, and then we'll take our leave. John 14:15. John 14:15 reads as follows. It says, if you love me, then keep my commandments. Right after that, we had Matthew chapter 5, verses 10 through 12. Blessed are ye when they revile you, and say all manner of evil against you falsely for my name's sake. When this happens, rejoice and be exceeding glad, for they did the same thing to the prophets that came before you. Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 through 20, which is, I come not do not think that I come to destroy the law or the prophets. I came not to destroy, but I came that the law might be fulfilled. And until heaven and earth pass, should not in any wise any of the most minuscule of measurements, nor the handwriting that's written didn't change. If anyone breaks even the least of breaks any of these least of commandments and teaches others to do the same, they're considered to be the least in the kingdom. Anyone who lives by them and teaches others to do so is considered to be the greatest in the kingdom. And we should obey the law greater than the scribes and the Pharisees, lest we lose our place in the kingdom. And then Matthew chapter 7, verse 12, do unto others as you want done unto you, for this is the law and the prophets. Amen. So those are the things that are going to help us do this, to reverse this curse, to reverse the mythology, and to be exactly what Yah has called us to be. Amen. So thank you all. Appreciate you. I know it went long today, even for what we do. I went a little long, so I apologize. Keep us in prayer. Doing a little recovery. Actually had a little backtrack yesterday where I was just, my body was hurting a lot, but praise Yah. Thankful for my family and my wife and everybody at SOC for doing what y'all do, and keep on trucking and moving. If you're with us on TikTok, we're gonna get ready to do our shout out. We are outside, but I think it should work enough to where you can hear what's going on. It is windy, but prayerfully, you guys will be able to, be able to listen in and get something out of the shout out. If you want to come over from Facebook or YouTube, feel free to come over. I'll see you guys later this evening. Our date's coming up, March 13th. We're starting to remove the leaven from our home. April 9th will be Rosh Chodesh Nisan, where we'll get ready to. That'll be our new year, Israelite New Year, Hebrew calendar. April 22nd, that'll be Pasach, Passover, and that'll be on Zoom. If you, and also don't forget the 7 days prior to that on Zoom, we'll be doing our 7 last word service. So if you'd like to join us for that, leading up every evening up until, we might even have that in the evening live sessions as well. More than likely we'll do that. But April 22nd will be Passover. If you want to join us in person, we'll be in Florida, Beverly Hills, Florida, for that. On April 20th through the 22nd. If you're going to be joining us or joining us on the 26th and the 27th for the Feast of Unleavened Bread, I know that's 8 days worth or 7 days worth, right? But we'll be meeting up physically on the 26th and the 27th, and we'll have something on Zoom as well. So if you'd like to join us that virtually, we'll also, or on the 27th for sure, I'm not sure about the 26th, we'll also physically be in Central Florida on the 26th and 27th if you'd like to join us then. Also, too, for Passover, if you're coming, we do ask for a $100 donation if you're going to be there physically. And if you're going to be there virtually, you can give a donation as well. But physically, we definitely are asking for a suggested donation of $100 because we want to make sure that we feed you guys. We want to make sure that we bless the people that are allowing us to use their land. Right. Then when we get to June 16th, we're going to be doing Shavat, or the day of Pentecost in Lanham, Maryland. That's Lanham, Maryland. And that'll be on June 16th. Not sure if we'll be doing something that Saturday as well, but June 16th. So everybody who's in the DMV, everybody who's in Baltimore, some of y'all who are in Pennsylvania, some of y'all that even if you want to come down from, New York, New Jersey area, all that stuff, feel free to come there, especially if we know enough people to come in there. We'll definitely do something on the 15th for sure, but we'll definitely meet up on the 16th. So if you want to go ahead and get ready for that, these are just the physical meetups, obviously. And then we have others coming on later on down the road. We'll have more information for in October once we start getting to the Feast of Trumpets and stuff. We are looking at doing something at some point central located in the United States of America and something located, West Coast or West Coast-ish as well. So if you guys want to kind of get ready for that, obviously when we get to, I think it's October 17th to the 24th this year, when we get to the Feast of Tabernacles, that'll be back in Georgia, same place that we did last year, same pricing that we had for last year. So just be aware of that. And then those who are interested, December 6th to the 9th, we're having our Women in Red. Um, that's going to be the cruise. We might still have something on Zoom. If not, we'll make sure that we do a recording so you guys can still be with us virtually in a sense. Just won't be live, but we're hoping to maybe do something December 6th to the 9th, and if time allows for us to then have another virtual thing just for you all virtually. But December 6th to the 9th, that's going to be the cruise. Everybody's invited. Families are invited. You have to put down at least $100 deposit. If you don't do so, then if your spot can't be saved, then obviously the closer you get to it, the more expensive it is. But if you put your deposit down now, you'll be able to pay off the rest of whatever you're doing, whether you're coming by yourself, which if you're willing to split a room with somebody, then that could be as little as 420 to 500, depending on where you are or what size you want to do or what you want to deal with in the room. And then depending on how many family members, if you have like four or more, then there's like pricing that changes for four or more people that are coming, etc. So if you let us know and we can try to put some stuff together, you can get in touch with Sister Renee, our secretary, at soc.secretary082@gmail.com. Once again, that's soc.secretary082@gmail.com. Once again, that's soc.secretary082@gmail.com. She can give you more information on that. Brothers, we got a meetup on Saturday at 7:00 p.m. Eastern New York time. So we'll discuss where we're going to be for November, and of course, have your questions ready. We're going to do our Q&A just for you guys on Zoom. It's going to be a safe space, not going to be recorded, so feel free to join us for that. And we hope to see you guys then for any of these things we're talking about and any in between. Oh, I skipped one. I'm sorry, because it's not part of the holy days or the regular stuff we do at SOC, but we're supporting basically SOC, but we're supporting Minister Dr. Tamar Hunter, PhD, or also known as Apostle Dr. Tamar Hunter, PhD. We're going to be supporting her in the event that she's doing on June 22nd. That'll be in the Atlanta, Georgia area. So please, ma'am, please, sir, if you can kind of hold that date. And matter of fact, we can even make that a day, or who knows, maybe a couple days. Well, we have to make it a day because in my family, we got some stuff going on. We're actually going to be having June 16th, and we got some family stuff going on through that week. So I might be showing up just on the 21st. So let's just say for sure we'll meet up, and maybe we can do an all-day type thing. And the 22nd, show up to the event strong on June 22nd and do what we need to do there. But everybody, we got a lot of cats in Georgia, especially a lot of people that's in the Atlanta area, stuff like that. So feel free to come through. And we'd love to be able to see y'all, have some fellowship. And who knows, if y'all want to come together again the day after, we can try to find a spot to do a live session that Sunday and do something just for y'all. Okay. And find a park or something like that. And just, relax, have a great time, and maybe even turn into like some kind of a Q&A session or something. Y'all can be there and everybody can listen and watch and all that stuff. Right. So, but thank you guys. Appreciate you. That's all that I have. I know we went really long for today. Keep us in prayer. Our goal is to see you guys later this evening. And hopefully y'all are doing better. Continue to lift each other up. Thank you for everybody for coming on for Thursday Rising Prayer. Minister Nice, as always, thank you for that. And that's all I have. I think I got a couple of you scheduled to be able to try and contact and connect with. So we'll try to make that happen ASAP. Keep an eye out for things to be posted. And prayerfully, we'll get still waiting on stuff to get with the website. We're having issue with. I think we're going to have to go through a new company possibly at some point. But just keep listening in, looking for what's posted. Sure that things are posted in different places, different platforms, so that you can always be aware of what's going on. We'll try to make sure that the new dates and times and all the stuff, places and addresses will be put in places where you can find them. And some of you who've been waiting for us to give you the information, just let us know. Also, too, I do know there's a couple of you, we are updating our stuff today. So if there's some of you that have been waiting for us to contact you back, get in touch with you and stuff, somebody will probably reach out to you today. Okay. Just to let you know. Right. But thank you guys. Appreciate you. We're lost pretty much everybody now at this point, because they're like, oh, they are selling stuff, but we believe this is not just virtual, it's reality. So we are about supporting one another, supporting each other's businesses, goals, dreams, visions, feeding each other, continuing to build a nation as a nation should be built. So Are we still offering classes? Classes are always offered on Patreon. If you're part of the SOC University class, then you have on-demand classes. I try my best as often as I can to make sure that I'm online. And there are certain dates and times that we make sure that we open up Zoom. Or if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can come on there and ask. So yeah, so if you want that, you can go to Patreon, and once you do that, and you're part of the tier that's on demand, you can always look up the stuff no matter what. Then you can feel free to go on there, and any classes that are on there already, and any classes that we do from this point on, you'll have access to it right then and there. All right, but you can always you can always get more information as well. Check out our link tree and everything like that. Oh, last reminder, and then we'll go ahead and do our shout out. Saturday, we're asking that you get the Clapper app, CLAPPER, Clapper app. That's where we're going to do our watch party this time. We've been having issues off and on TikTok. We've been having issues on Zoom. So the easiest way to do it is just you won't have to do anything, not gonna cost you anything, whatever. You just got to show up on Clapper. The app itself is free. It's Kofi_Ofori. So my name underscore in between KOFI_OFORI, same thing that it is on TikTok. But just look up Kofi_Ofori, or you can even look up hashtag find Kofi or hashtag SOC or some combination of all those, and you should be able to find us on Clapper. We'll make sure we keep putting links out for you guys. But on Saturday, that'll be Saturday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern New York time. So if you don't have the Clapper app, please get that so that you can join us on Saturday. All righty. Appreciate you all. Thank you again. We'll go ahead and get ready to do our shout out. If you're on TikTok, just stick around. As soon as we do our dismissal, you'll see how that works. Everybody else, or everybody all together, we appreciate you. Thank you so much. We give all honor and praise to the Most High. We give all praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Amma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. As always, check her out on TikTok, YouTube, or website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. Those in the UK, we will have our WhatsApp link out for just you guys. And I'll be sending that to the couple of you that don't want to have your information. So you should be able to join that WhatsApp group just for the UK. Then we're going to be circling around. We're coming to the Caribbean next. Also, too, don't forget those who have teenagers. We're trying to start a Shabbat school for you guys next. Adults, just hold off on that. Right now, we've got plenty of stuff that's just for the adults anyways. But we got the children's Shabbat school. We're trying to start the teens Shabbat school. So if you got teenagers, or if you are a teen and you're interested, or if you're interested in even helping the teens, if you are very close to being a teen yourself, we have some 19-year-olds, stuff like that. You can get with Elder Amma or myself, or just keep looking for stuff, and we'll make sure that that's going to happen. Okay, so thank you everybody for being on. As always, this has been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again, please remember, as always, that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, early Shabbat Shalom if you're using the Israelite calendar. Shalom to you. Hopefully we'll see you later on tonight, 8:00 p.m. Eastern New York time. For everybody else who's still on with us, thank you so much for being here, being attentive, and giving us some time and being patient with me today.